In this video, we recap the full journey of the Straw Hats from One Piece East Blue to Thriller Bark. The story starts with Gold Roger, the Pirate King, gained great wealth, fame, and power. Before he was executed, he told the crowd he had left his treasure somewhere in the world. Starting the Great Age of Pirates, the red-haired pirates came to Fuchsia Village. After a year, young Monkey D. Luffy tried to prove his bravery by stabbing under his left eye. At the bar, the pirates laughed and cheered for him. Luffy asked Shanks to let him join the crew, but Shanks refused because Luffy was too young and couldn't swim. Mountain bandits led by Higuma then entered the bar and demanded alcohol. Makino said the pirates had drunk it all. Shanks offered the last bottle, but Higuma smashed it on him. Shanks calmly cleaned up while Higuma caused more damage. Luffy got angry at Shanks for not fighting back. When he stormed out, Shanks catched Luffy's arm and stretch and realized he had eaten the devil fruit. Shanks told him his body was now rubber, but he would never be able to swim again. Later, while the pirates were gone, Higuma's gang returned. Luffy picked a fight and was kidnapped. Makino told Mayor Whoop Slap. Higuma planned to sell Luffy because of his strange body, but then decided to kill him. Before he could, Shanks and his crew showed up. When a bandit pointed a gun at Shanks, Lucky Roo shot him. Shanks said he could ignore insults, but never anyone hurting his friends. Ben Beckman beat the rest, but Higuma escaped with Luffy. He took him out to sea and threw him into the water. A Sea King appeared, ate Higuma, and attacked Luffy, but Shanks saved him and lost his left arm. Soon after, the red-haired pirates left Fuchsia Village. Luffy decided he would make his own crew, become stronger than Shanks, find the treasure, and become the Pirate King. Shanks gave Luffy his straw hat and told him to return it once he surpassed him. 10 years later, Luffy set out alone in a small boat. When the Lord of the Coast appeared again, he defeated it with Gomu Gomu no pistol. As he drifted into the open sea, he dreamed of finding 10 crewmates, making his Jolly Roger and becoming the Pirate King. Luffy drifts at sea inside a barrel. Sailors from a passing cruise ship pull it aboard, but the ship is soon attacked by the pirate Alvida's crew. The barrel rolls into the kitchen. After the pirates destroy the ship's sails, they board to steal supplies, and Alvida forces her chore boy, Kobe, to join them. Meanwhile, a girl sneaks onto Alvida's ship to steal treasure. In the cruise ship's kitchen, Kobe and the pirates open the barrel and find Luffy inside, sleeping. Luffy easily defeats them, then eats the ship's food with Kobe. Luffy explains that his small boat was destroyed by a whirlpool, leaving him trapped in the barrel. Kobe says he was kidnapped by Alvida and forced to work for her, but dreams of joining the Marines. Alvida learns about Luffy and suspects he's a bounty hunter. She attacks him and Kobe, but Luffy defeats her crew. Her club doesn't hurt him because he ate a devil fruit that made his body like rubber. Luffy knocks her into the sea with his Gomu Gomu no pistol. After the fight, Luffy and Kobe sail away together, spotting the same girl who robbed Alvida's ship, leaving on her own boat. Luffy sets his sights on the Grand Line and plans to recruit the pirate hunter Roronoa Zoro for his crew. They arrive at Shell's Town, home to a Marines base. There, they find Zoro tied to a cross. A little girl named Rika tries to give him onigiri but is stopped by Helmeppo, the arrogant son of Captain Morgan. He destroys her food, but Zoro later eats it anyway. Rika explains that Captain Morgan rules the town harshly and lets Helmeppo bully people. When Helmeppo brought a violent wolf into a bar, Zoro attacked him for his cruelty. To save the bar's people, Zoro turned himself in and was sentenced to 1 month tied up. Helmeppo later reveals he plans to execute Zoro early. Luffy punches him for lying, then goes to find Zoro's swords at the Marine base. As Morgan builds a huge statue of himself, Luffy accidentally destroys it while launching to the rooftop. He grabs Helmeppo and finds Zoro's swords while the same girl from before sneaks in to steal treasure. Kobe tries to free Zoro but is caught by Morgan, who orders his men to shoot, but Luffy blocks the bullets with his rubber body and returns the swords to Zoro. Zoro cuts himself free, fights back, and agrees to join Luffy if they survive Morgan attacks with his axe hand, but Luffy and Zoro easily defeat him. Helmeppo takes Kobe hostage, but Luffy punches him, and Zoro cuts Morgan down. The Marines, tired of Morgan's abuse, arrest him. Afterward, Luffy, Zoro, and Kobe celebrate in a restaurant. Kobe explains that the world is split by the Red Line, and the Grand Line runs across it, the sea where Gold Roger hid his treasure. The new base commander, Ripper, accepts Kobe into the Marines but orders Luffy and Zoro to leave town because they're pirates. He promises not to report them. Luffy and Zoro agree and set off together to continue their journey. Meanwhile, a girl sneaks into a Marine base looking for a map of the Grand Line. She learns that it was stolen by another pirate, Buggy. She sets out to find him and take it back. At sea, 3 of Buggy's pirates find her small boat pretending to be stranded. She tricks them with promises of treasure, boards their ship, and sails away while their boat sinks in a storm. Elsewhere, Luffy and Zoro sail together. When Luffy's straw hat falls off, Zoro retrieves it. Luffy then spots a giant bird and uses Gomu Gomu no rocket to jump up toward it, but the giant bird grabs him and carries him away. The stranded Buggy pirates find Zoro's boat and try to steal it, but are easily defeated. They warn Zoro that Buggy is a dangerous pirate with devil fruit powers. After being shot down by cannon fire, the bird drops Luffy into Buggy's town, where he meets the girl thief, Nami. Together, they fight Buggy's men, escape, and rest at a restaurant. She introduces herself as a thief who steals from pirates. Nami reveals that she wants to gather 100 million berries and shows her navigation skills. Nami then betrays Luffy, tying him up and handing him to Buggy to earn his trust. Buggy locks Luffy in a cage and fires a Buggy Ball, a massive cannonball that blows up an entire row of houses. Zoro, seeing the explosion, rushes into town. Buggy orders Nami to fire another shot at Luffy, but she refuses and burns her hands. Buggy commands his men to attack, but Zoro arrives and fights Buggy, cutting off his limbs. Buggy's severed hand stabs Zoro from behind and reattaches. He reveals his Bara Bara no Mi power that lets him split and control his body parts wounded. Zoro redirects the cannon and blasts Buggy's crew with Nami's help. Zoro drags Luffy's cage to a pet shop, where they meet a dog named Choo Choo guarding his late owner's store. Nami finds the cage key, but Choo Choo eats it. Buggy sends his beast tamer Moji and his lion Richie to attack. Richie destroys the cage, freeing Luffy, but burns down the pet shop. Luffy defeats Moji and Richie and gives Choo Choo a saved box of food. Buggy, angry at Moji's failure, fires another Buggy Ball, destroying the mayor's house. The mayor, unhurt, decides to fight Buggy. Nami joins Luffy and Zoro to help him, but Luffy knocks the mayor out so he won't get hurt. Buggy fires again, but Luffy deflects the cannonball with his rubber body, blasting Buggy's crew. Only Buggy and his acrobat Kabaji survive. Kabaji challenges Zoro, using dirty tricks and attacking his wound, but Zoro defeats him with his onigiri attack before collapsing. While Zoro fights, Nami sneaks into Buggy's pub, knocks out a guard, and steals the Grand Line map. Meanwhile, Luffy battles Buggy, who splits his body to dodge attacks. Buggy damages Luffy's straw hat, enraging him. Luffy reveals its meaning, and Buggy admits his hatred for Shanks. Buggy explains they were once shipmates. He had planned to steal a treasure map and devil fruit, but accidentally ate the fruit when Shanks startled him, losing his ability to swim and his map. In the present, Buggy spots Nami and chases her for stealing his treasure, splitting into pieces with the Bara Bara no Mi. Luffy defeats him, while Nami ties up most of Buggy's body parts with rope. Luffy finishes him with Gomu Gomu no Bazooka, launching him out of town. Nami gives Luffy the Grand Line map, but keeps the treasure, agreeing to travel with him for now. The townspeople return, see the destruction, and mistakenly blame Luffy's group. Choo Choo stops them, and the crew escapes to the pier. The mayor wakes up, realizes Buggy is gone, and thanks the group as they sail off to Nami's shock. Luffy leaves the stolen treasure behind for the townspeople to rebuild. With no real ship, the crew sails to Syrup Village to find a better one before heading to the Grand Line. In the village, the prankster Usopp scares people by shouting that pirates are coming, but they chase him away when they see it's a lie. Soon after, one of the kids in his pretend pirate crew tells him that real pirates have arrived. Usopp and the kids go to the shore, but their tricks fail. Luffy sees through everything. Luffy then realizes Usopp is Yasopp's son, one of Shanks' crew. After they eat together, they visit the big hilltop mansion for help. Inside lives Kaya, a sick young woman protected by her butler Klahadore. Usopp is her only friend, but Klahadore refuses to let him in because of his bad reputation. Usopp sneaks inside anyway, and Luffy's crew follows. Klahadore catches them, throws them out, and insults Usopp and Yasopp for being pirates. Later, Klahadore acts kind to Kaya and says he only wants to protect her. Kaya believes him. Meanwhile, outside town, a strange man named Django shows off his hypnosis, and even hypnotizes himself by accident. Usopp and Luffy talk about Yasopp on a cliff, but they soon see Klahadore secretly meeting Django. They overhear the truth. Klahadore is actually Captain Kuro of the Black Cat Pirates, and he plans to kill Kaya and steal her fortune by having Django hypnotize her into changing her will. Django spots them and hypnotizes Luffy to sleep, making him fall off the cliff. Usopp runs away, but nobody believes his warning. The villagers chase him off, and Kaya refuses to trust him. When he tries to make her escape, her guards stop him. She slaps him, and her servant Mary even shoots him in the arm. That night, Kuro visits Kaya's room, breaks the glasses she made for him, shows his claws, and slashes Mary. The next morning at dawn, the Black Cat Pirates land. but they come from the North Shore, not the South. Luffy gets lost, and Zoro struggles climbing the slippery hill. Usopp tries to stop the pirates alone with his slingshot, and by offering Luffy's treasure to bribe them, but Nami stops him. The pirates keep advancing until Luffy and Zoro finally arrive to help. Kuro, furious that his crew is late, decides to kill his crew if his plan gets ruined. Django hypnotizes his crew to make them stronger, but he also hypnotizes Luffy by mistake. The overpowered Luffy defeats the pirates and even tears off the bow of their ship, then hypnotizes Luffy again, and Luffy collapses. Desperate, Django summons the Nyaban brothers, Sham and Buchi. They pretend to be weak but surprise Zoro, stealing 2 of his swords and slashing his chest. Usopp tries to help but accidentally hits Zoro instead. Nami tries to get the swords back, but is cut by Django's chakram. Back at the mansion, Kaya finds the wounded Mary, who tells her that Usopp was right. Klahadore is a pirate trying to kill her. Kuro arrives furious. Even his own crew fears him. Sham and Buchi insult him for becoming soft, so he uses his deadly shakushi move, moving faster than the eye can see, and slashes them easily. He gives them 5 minutes to kill Zoro or die. Nami kicks Zoro's swords back to him, and Zoro, annoyed but thankful, defeats the Nyaban brothers with his Tatsumaki attack. Kuro keeps counting down the minutes as Usopp and the Black Cat pirate stare in shock at Zoro's powerful attack. Even Django is surprised, and Zoro tells Kuro he'll defeat him in less than 5 minutes. Kuro is slightly impressed. Buchi, still conscious, begs Django to hypnotize him to become stronger. Django agrees, and Buchi grows larger and wilder. Zoro prepares to fight him before facing Kuro. Meanwhile, Nami wakes Luffy, who is still asleep under the ship's figurehead. She stomps on his head to wake him, just in time for him to bite Django's deadly pendulum before it hits her. Seeing Luffy and Zoro's strength, the pirates start to panic. Nami faints, and Luffy notices her wound. She asks him to fight for the village and her treasure, and he agrees. The pirates flee in fear, and Luffy fights Django while Zoro battles Buchi. Kuro ends his countdown, ready to kill everyone. Shocked that Luffy survived the cliff fall before he can act, Kaya arrives and begs him to stop. When Kuro tries to attack her, Usopp saves her. Kaya offers him her fortune if he spares the village. But Kuro says he wants peace, not money, and that his crew will still destroy everything. Then Kaya points a gun at him, but he tricks her into lowering it, calling the last 3 years with her an insult to his pride. He grabs the gun and throws it down. Usopp picks it up and tries to shoot him, but Kuro uses his Shakushi speed to appear behind him. Before he can strike, Luffy hits Kuro with Gomu Gomu no pistol, knocking him to the ground. Luffy swears to make him pay for attacking his friends. Usopp's kid crew joins in to help. Wounded but determined, Usopp orders them to protect Kaya as they run. Meanwhile, Kuro orders Django to chase Kaya while he fights Luffy himself. Zoro tries to help Luffy but is stopped by the raging Buchi. Despite Buchi's strength, Zoro cuts him down with his 3 swords. Kuro mocks Usopp's weakness, but Luffy throws a boulder at his crew. Zoro, with Luffy's permission, goes after Django to help Kaya. Luffy and Kuro clash again. Kuro dodges Luffy's punches with his Shakushi speed. He admits he no longer wants to be a captain. He only wants a quiet life. In a flashback, Kuro remembers his plan. Years ago, he slaughtered a marine crew except for 1 soldier, then had Django hypnotize that soldier and one of his own men, and Kuro faked his death by sending a double to the Marines and allowing the real Kuro to live peacefully. Until now, in present, Luffy smashes the claws on Kuro's glove with the boulder. Luffy says his dream is greater than Kuro's fake peace. Meanwhile, the kids guide Kaya through the forest, hiding from Django. When she collapses from exhaustion, they try to trap Django, but their plan fails. Django threatens to kill them unless Kaya signs her will. She agrees, but before he can strike, Zoro and Usopp arrive to save her. At the coast, Kuro loses control, slashing wildly with his upgraded Shakushi Shushi attack that cuts everything in range, even his own crew. Luffy too is injured but endures. When Kuro attacks again, Luffy grabs him with his rubber arms, traps him, and ends the fight with Gomu Gomu no Cane, a massive headbutt that knocks him out. Luffy orders the remaining Black Cat pirates to leave the island and take Kuro with them. At the same time, Zoro and Usopp protect Kaya from Django. Zoro cuts down a branch so Usopp can use his Hasatsu, Kayaku Boshi, a slingshot blast that explodes in Django's face, defeating him. After this, Usopp asks the kids not to tell anyone about his heroics. Later, Usopp abandons their little crew of kids to become a real pirate. Afterwards, Kaya thanks the crew and gives them the Going Merry. As gratitude, Luffy's crew happily accepts and invites Usopp to join them. After they leave, Kaya and Merry recall Usopp's past. His father Yasopp left to sail with Shanks, and soon after, Usopp's mother died. Left alone, Usopp began lying to cheer himself up. pretending his father would return one day. Now the kids take his place as the town's pranksters, shouting that pirates are coming. Luffy sketches the crew's Jolly Roger, and Usopp proudly paints it onto the sails of their new ship, the start of the Straw Hat Pirates' true adventure. While sailing, Nami spots an island full of strange animals, rumored to hold legendary treasure protected by gods. The crew stops to search. They are attacked by weird animal hybrids and hear a voice calling itself a god. His traps fail, and the crew catches him. He is Gaimon, a man stuck in a chest for 20 years. Luffy befriends him, and Gaimon explains he came to the island with pirates to find treasure. After searching for weeks with no luck, the crew left. When Gaimon finally found treasure chests on a cliff, he slipped, fell into a box, and got stuck, alone and abandoned. Luffy climbs the mountain but finds all 5 treasure chests empty. He invites Gaimon to join his crew, but Gaimon refuses because he is happy living with the animals and feels at peace knowing the treasure was empty. After thanking them, Gaimon waves goodbye as the crew sails toward their next adventure. After finding a box of cannonballs, Luffy and Usopp play with the ship's cannons while Zoro naps and dreams about his past. As a child in Shimotsuki village, Zoro trained at a dojo after losing to Kuina, the daughter of the swordmaster Kushiro. Though he became strong enough to defeat adults, he still couldn't beat Kuina, losing to her 2,000 times. One night, they dueled with real swords. Kuina won again, but confessed she'd never be the world's best swordsman because she was a girl. They promised that one of them would earn that title. The next day, Kuina died in an accident, and Zoro swore to fulfill their dream himself. Kushiro gave him Kuina's sword, the Wado Ichimonji, and Zoro trained for 8 years before becoming a pirate hunter. Back in the present, Luffy fires a cannon at a rock, accidentally hitting one where bounty hunter Johnny and his sick partner Yosaku were resting. Mistaking it for an attack, Johnny boards the ship and accuses the crew. Nami discovers Yosaku has scurvy and cures him with lime juice. Realizing they need a cook to prevent illness, they sail to the floating restaurant Barati. However, they arrive at the same time as Marine Lieutenant Fullbody, who is on a date but orders his men to attack Luffy's ship. Luffy deflects the cannonball, accidentally blasting a hole in the Barati's roof and injuring the head chef Zeph. Since Luffy can't pay for the damage, Zeph forces him to work as a chore boy for a year. Inside, Fullbody insults sous chef Sanji by dropping a fly into his soup. Sanji kicks him for wasting food, angering the staff. Patty scolds Sanji, while Luffy and Zeph crash through the floor above them. Before Fullbody can escape, news spreads that Don Krieg, a feared pirate, has escaped. Soon, Krieg's starving officer Gin appears, asking for food. Patty refuses and beats him up, but Sanji gives him seafood risotto anyway. Luffy, impressed by Sanji's kindness, invites him to join his crew, but Sanji refuses, saying he has his own reasons to stay. Gin warns Luffy that the Grand Line is deadly, then returns to his captain. Luffy clumsily works as a waiter while Sanji flirts with Nami. At the same time, Gin tells Krieg about the Barati, and the pirates plan to seize it. Fog covers the sea as Krieg's fleet approaches. Frightening the customers, Krieg enters, begging for food and promising not to attack. Sanji feeds him despite the staff's protests. Once fed, Krieg betrays them, demanding food for his 100 men and threatening to take the ship. Patty shoots Krieg with his meatball cannon, but his golden armor blocks it. Krieg retaliates by opening fire on the chefs. Zeph orders them to feed the pirates, recognizing Krieg as the captain who failed to survive the Grand Line Krieg. Realizing Zeph is a former pirate who lost his leg, demands Zeph's old logbook to guide him back to sea. Gin apologizes, saying he didn't know Krieg would betray them, and explains their defeat. Krieg's fleet of 50 ships and 5,000 men was destroyed by one man, Dracule Hawkeye Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman. Only their flagship survived thanks to a storm. Krieg prepares to take the Barati, but suddenly his ship is sliced in half by Mihawk, who followed them to the restaurant. As the wreckage sinks, Johnny and Yosaku float ashore, revealing that Nami stole the Going Merry and left the crew behind. Zoro recognizes Mihawk immediately and challenges him to a duel. Mihawk accepts, but uses only a small knife, considering Zoro too weak for his real blade. Despite using 3 swords, Zoro can't land a hit, but Mihawk wounds him. Impressed by his will, switches to his massive black sword, Yoru. With one strike, he shatters 2 of Zoro's katanas, leaving only the Wado Ichimonji. Accepting defeat, Zoro stands still and lets Mihawk slash him across the chest, knocking him out. Mihawk spares his life, telling him it's too soon for him to die and to get stronger before challenging him again. Zoro promises never to lose again. Satisfied, Mihawk ends the duel and sails away, leaving Krieg behind. Luffy orders Usopp and Zoro to follow Nami while he faces Krieg. Zeph agrees to nullify Luffy's debt if he stops Krieg. Sanji, wanting to protect the restaurant from damage, orders them to raise the defenses so they can still use the restaurant as a battlefield. With no more interruptions, Krieg begins his attack on the Bharati. Patty and Carne attack with Sabagashira the Yur, but Krieg easily blocks it. The chefs also attack, but they are quickly defeated. Patty and Carne remember how they were accepted here, so they decide to stay and fight Krieg. Krieg then unleashes his top fighter, Pearl, a man covered in iron armor who claims he's never bled. Krieg attacks Luffy, and when Luffy falls, he bumps into Pearl, causing Pearl's nose to start bleeding, ending Pearl's never bled record. Pearl sets the deck on fire, boasting that his armor protects him from the flames. Sanji fights him, severely injuring him, but gets knocked out. Just then, Gin points a gun at Zeph. Pearl recovers and says that if Sanji dodges his next attack, Gin will shoot Zeph. With no choice, Sanji takes several heavy hits. As Sanji is knocked out, he remembers his childhood when he worked as a cook's apprentice on a cruise ship that was attacked by Zeph's pirate crew. They robbed the ship and beat Sanji. During this, Sanji mentioned his dream of finding the All Blue. A storm swept Sanji overboard. Zeph jumped after him to save him, but a giant wave destroyed the ship and Zeph's leg was trapped. He had to cut it off using a chain to escape. He saved Sanji and the two were stranded on a rock with almost no food. Zeph gave Sanji a small bag of rations and kept a large sack for himself. Sanji rationed his food carefully but eventually ran out. They waited on opposite sides of the rock, watching for passing ships to rescue them. Starving, Sanji attacked Zeph to steal his food, only to discover the big sack contained only treasure. Zeph had given Sanji all the real food. Sanji also realized Zeph sacrificed his leg to save him. Zeph explained he saved Sanji because he too once had the dream of finding the All Blue. Eventually they were rescued and together they built the Bharati. In the present, Sanji stands up and declares he will keep fighting. Enraged, Luffy uses Gomu Gomu no Ono, destroying the entire portside. Krieg orders Gin to kill Sanji, but Gin hesitates. Sanji was the man who once fed him. Pearl attempts to kill Sanji himself, but Gin defeats Pearl and knocks him out. Gin decides to fight Sanji as thanks for the food, while Krieg focuses on Luffy. Gin fights Sanji using two weighted tonfa. Sanji initially lands hits easily, but Gin quickly recovers, beating Sanji badly. Yet he cannot bring himself to finish him. Gin begs Krieg to stop the attack. Instead, Krieg releases his deadliest weapon, the MH5 poison gas bomb. Gin sacrifices himself to shield Luffy and Sanji, taking the full blast gravely poisoned. The restaurant staff rush to help him. Enraged, Luffy unleashes a storm of attacks. A fierce battle erupts. Luffy hits Krieg with Gomu Gomu no Bazooka, breaking Krieg's armor and shattering his golden plating. Krieg tries to trap Luffy with his spiked net, but Luffy frees himself and punches Krieg unconscious. Luffy falls into the water, but Sanji saves him. Meanwhile, Krieg stands back up and attacks his own crew in panic, but Gin knocks him out. Gin orders Krieg's crew to retreat. Weak and dying, Gin thanks Sanji for saving his life and promises he will reach the Grand Line someday. Luffy asks Sanji again to join his crew, but Sanji refuses, saying he can't leave Zeph. However, Zeph overhears. Inside, the chefs pretend they dislike Sanji's soup, so he will have a reason to leave. Sanji storms out angrily. Zeph explains to Luffy why they acted this way, but Sanji overhears. He finally agrees to join the crew. Luffy and Sanji prepare to leave. Sanji kneels before Zeph and the staff, thanking Zeph tearfully for everything. They part with smiles and respect. Meanwhile, Nami gets closer to her home. At the same time, Yosaku explains that Nami is heading to Arlong Park, the base of the feared fishman Arlong, one of East Blue's most dangerous pirates, and tells them that fishmen are powerful sea creatures with human form and immense strength. Nami arrives at Arlong Park, where Arlong is bribing a corrupt marine officer. Meanwhile, Zoro, Usopp, and Johnny reaches to the island, and Zoro prepares to charge the base, but Usopp and Johnny stop him. They tie him up with rope and sail around the island. Their ship is spotted by Arlong's fishmen. Usopp and Johnny jump into the sea to escape, but Zoro can't get away and is captured by the Arlong pirates. Arlong interrogates Zoro and explains that fishmen are far superior to humans because they are stronger and can breathe underwater. Nami appears and tells Zoro she is an officer and the cartographer working for Arlong. Meanwhile, Usopp and Johnny reach Gosa village and discover it has been destroyed with all the houses flipped upside down. A fishman explains that Arlong's sea monster Mamu destroyed the village because someone couldn't pay the tribute. He then tries to capture Usopp, but Nojiko saves him by drawing the pirate away. She brings Usopp to her home. Far out at sea, Luffy, Sanji, and Yosaku eat on the ship when Momu appears, attracted by the food Momu attacks, but Luffy and Sanji beat him and knock him back into the water. Luffy then forces Momu to pull their ship toward Arlong Park. At Nojiko's house, Usopp meets the boy Chabo, who says his father was killed when Arlong destroyed Gosa village. Usopp learns that Nami works for Arlong. Nojiko reveals she is Nami's adopted sister. Usopp sadly says he thought Nami enjoyed being with their crew. Meanwhile, Arlong attacks Genzo for owning a weapon. Nojiko explains that Arlong sees humans as tools and forces, every villager to pay him each month or be killed. He destroyed Gosa village because one person couldn't pay. Arlong says he will use the tribute money to rule all of East Blue. Since having a weapon counts as rebellion, Arlong decides to execute Genzo, but Usopp interrupts and shoots him from a rooftop. Furious, Arlong lifts the entire house and smashes it into another. His own crew stops him so he won't destroy Kokoyashi village and lose money. Genzo is treated for his wounds. At the same time, Nami visits a grave on a cliff and says she will raise 100 million berries to buy back the village. Zoro, who already defeated all the guards inside, meets Hachi. Thinking Zoro is a guest, Hachi offers to take him to Kokoyashi village. Zoro leaves just before Arlong returns and learns the man who escaped was the pirate hunter Roronoa Zoro. Usopp runs from the Arlong pirates but eventually falls off a cliff. Chu, one of Arlong's officers, catches him and brings him to Arlong Park. Meanwhile, Kurubi accuses Nami of helping Zoro escape and hiding treasure in the village. To prove her loyalty, she stabs Usopp in the stomach and he falls into the pool. Johnny witnesses Nami stabbing Usopp and believes she killed him. The officers now trust her. Nami goes to her room but then notices Luffy's ship arriving near Arlong Park. The ship is launched into the air and crashes into the forest. Zoro meets Luffy among the trees. At the same time, Nami confronts the crew and says she truly works for Arlong, telling them to leave the island before they get caught. But Luffy refuses to leave without her. He lies down on the road, saying he won't move. Johnny and Yosaku decide to leave the crew and part ways with Zoro. Meanwhile, Usopp reunites with the crew and explains that Nami stabbed the back of her own hand, not him, letting him escape unharmed. Meanwhile, the Marine's 77th branch, led by Commodore Pudding Pudding, approaches the island to rescue any survivors from Gosa village and arrest Arlong. Arlong sends only 3 officers to handle them. Chu scares the Marines, Kurubi rips off the ship's rudder, and Hachi creates a whirlpool that sinks the ship, killing the Marines. Arlong then calls the Marine's 16th branch, led by Captain Nezumi, and sends them to Nami's house to stop her from buying Kokoyashi village. Nojiko meets Nami at her house, and Nami admits she made real happy memories with Luffy's crew, Kurubi and Hachi. Go to check reports of a flying ship. They confront Luffy, who is casually taking a walk nearby, and in a short flashback we see Nami's and Nojiko's past as she explains it to them. Nami and Nojiko grew up just outside Kokoyashi village with their adoptive mother, Belle-Mère, who survived by growing mekons. They were very poor. Nami stole books for her map-making hobby. Belle-Mère fed the girls and only ate mekons herself, and Nami wore Nojiko's old clothes. The next day, upset about their lack of money, Nami ran away and hid at Genzo's office. Genzo told her how Belle-Mère found them. While serving as a Marine during a war, Belle-Mère discovered Nojiko and baby Nami and took them home to raise as her daughter's Nojiko arrives, and they go back to Belle-Mère's house for dinner. Then the Arlong pirates invaded the island. Arlong declared the whole place under his control and forced everyone to pay a monthly tribute to live. Seeing smoke from the outskirts, Nami and Nojiko rushed home, knowing Belle-Mère didn't have enough money for all 3 of them. Arlong confronted Belle-Mère. She only had 100,000 berries, enough for herself or for her daughters, but not both. Villagers tried to hide Nami and Nojiko so Belle-Mère could pay for herself, but she refused to deny her family. She paid the tribute for the girls, not for herself. After telling them goodbye, Belle-Mère was shot and killed by Arlong. Impressed by Nami's map, Arlong forced her into his crew and gave her money. Nami decided to steal from pirates and save 100 million berries to buy back the village. Over the years, she became a pirate thief, hiding her earnings underground. In present, Captain Nezumi arrives at her house, claiming her treasure is stolen property. He digs up the orchard and seizes all of Nami's savings, keeping part of it for himself. Nami realizes Arlong sent Nezumi so he could keep her money and never free the village. When Nami tries to fight back, Nezumi shoots Nojiko in the back. While Nojiko is treated, Nami confronts Arlong. He says he didn't break his promise. He didn't saint Nezumi. Feeling betrayed, Nami returns to the village, where the villagers, led by Genzo, decide to fight Arlong. She begs them not to go, knowing they can't win, but they refuse and march toward Arlong Park. Furious and heartbroken, Nami repeatedly stabs the Arlong tattoo on her shoulder, and as she cries, she finally asks, "Help me, Luffy!" He places his straw hat on her head, agrees, and sends the crew to Arlong Park. Johnny and Yosaku stop the villagers outside so the crew can fight for them. The crew breaks through the gates of Arlong Park, and Luffy punches Arlong. Hatchin recognizes Zoro as the pirate hunter who escaped, and when they see Usopp alive, they realize Nami lied to them. Hatchin summons Momu to attack, but Luffy uses Gomu Gomu no Kazaguruma, knocking Mumu out and defeating the Fishmen pirates. However, Luffy becomes stuck because he planted his feet deep into the concrete. Arlong's 3 officers step forward. Hatchin tries to cover Luffy in squid ink and crush him, but it doesn't hurt Luffy in it, though he still can't move. Sanji fights Kurubi, Zoro chooses Hatchin as his opponent, and Usopp accidentally angers Chu, who begins chasing him. Chu sees villagers starting a rebellion, but Usopp declares Chu is his opponent. Chu then chases Usopp out of the base. Luffy is still stuck in the ground, so Arlong starts a cruel game. He lifts Luffy along with the cement on his feet, throws him into the pool to drown. Zoro and Sanji can't save him yet because Kurubi and Hatchin would beat them underwater. Zoro fights Hatchin, but since he's badly injured from his duel with Mihawk and only has 1 sword left, he struggles. Sanji gets distracted and Kurubi hits him. Seeing Luffy will drown, Genzo and Nojiko sneak into the base. They jump into the pool, lift Luffy's head above the water so he can breathe, and try to break the cement, but they can't. Hatchin climbs up to grab his 6 swords for his 6 arms. Zoro borrows 2 swords from Johnny and Yosaku, and uses 3-sword style again. Hatchin attacks Zoro's injuries, but Zoro uses Tatsumaki to destroy all 6 swords and launch Hatchin away. Zoro wins, but he's too hurt to save Luffy. Sanji dives into the pool to rescue Luffy, but Kurubi hits him from behind. Meanwhile, Chu keeps chasing Usopp through the outskirts of the island. Nami finishes bandaging her wounds at home, and decides to return to Arlong Park to join the fight. Underwater, Kurubi has the advantage. He grabs Sanji with his hair and beats him with fishman karate, dragging him deeper so the water pressure crushes him. Sanji damages Kurubi by blowing air into his gills, then returns to the surface. On land, Sanji regains the upper hand. Even though Kurubi threatens to use his strongest move, Sanji overwhelms him with rapid kicks and finishes him with Mutin Shot, smashing him through a wall. Meanwhile, Usopp pretends to be dead but decides to stop running. He hides in the forest while Chu fires high-pressure water bullets at him. Because Usopp covered Chu in wine earlier, he sets him on fire with a burning shot, and then beats him repeatedly with his hammer until he collapses. At the pool, Nojiko and Genso switch places, with Nojiko going underwater this time. Arlong attacks Zoro and Sanji by launching water-like bullets, but Nami arrives and joins the fight. Arlong promises to spare the villagers if she gives up, but Nami refuses and fights alongside the crew. Nojiko manages to revive Luffy, but his feet are still trapped underwater. Sanji dives again and tries to break the cement. Hatchin wakes up and tries to stop him, but reopening his wounds makes him faint again. Sanji breaks the cement and frees Luffy. Luffy leaps out of the water and attacks Arlong. Arlong bites through stone with his teeth and snaps swords in half. He then reveals his even sharper, fast-growing teeth and uses the extra sets as handheld weapons. Luffy grabs one set and uses it as a biting weapon too. Arlong uses Shark on darts, launching himself like a missile, but Luffy blocks him with his rubber arms. Angered, Arlong enters a stronger rage state like a Sea King. He gets his massive sword, the Kiribachi, and slams Luffy into the building, landing in Nami's map room. Luffy declares Nami as his navigator and sees a pen covered in her dried blood. He destroys Arlong's weapon with his bare hands and then destroys the entire map room, the place where Nami suffered for years. Outside, people see furniture flying out of the building. Nami sees this too and thanks Luffy. Arlong bites into Luffy's shoulder, but Luffy breaks his nose. Arlong uses one last attack, Shark on Tooth, but Luffy uses Gomu Gomu no Ono and stomps him straight through the building. Arlong crashes through every floor and is knocked out. The whole building collapses from the damage. Luffy climbs out of the rubble and says Nami is his crewmate. She accepts. The villagers try to celebrate, but Nezumi's Marines arrive to steal Arlong's money. The Straw Hats beat the Marines and tell them to arrest Arlong and return the money to the villagers. Nezumi escapes, swearing revenge. Back at the village, Genzo apologizes to Nami on behalf of everyone. Nezumi later reports Luffy to the Marines and requests a large bounty. News of Arlong's fall spreads and the whole island celebrates. Zoro is treated by Dr. Nako, while Luffy eats. Nami visits Belmare's grave with Nojiko and Genzo, telling them she will leave the village to follow Luffy. After sunset, she asks Nako to remove Arlong's tattoo and replaces it with a new one, a Mikan and Pinwheel, symbols of Belmare and Genzo. She leaves her 100 million berries behind, packs her things, and heads to the dock. Ignoring the villagers thanking her, Nami jumps onto the Going Merry, and it's revealed she pickpocketed them one last time, laughing as she shouts, "Thank you." As the Going Merry sails away, Nami officially joins the crew as their navigator, and the villagers wave goodbye, finally free. After leaving Kokoyashi village, the crew sails toward Logtown, the town of the beginning and the end, where the pirate king Gold D. Roger was both born and executed. During the trip, they celebrate Luffy's new 30 million berry bounty, the highest in East Blue. News of Arlong's defeat spreads across the seas, shocking pirates and marines. Many see Luffy's wanted poster, full body, now demoted. Mihawk, who shows it to Shanks, and even Buggy and Alvida, now teamed up and plotting revenge. After docking, the crew splits up. Luffy wants to see the platform where Roger died. Zoro searches for new swords. Nami shops. Usopp looks for weapons, and Sanji hunts for rare ingredients. Marine Captain Smoker, who can turn into smoke thanks to the Moku Moku no Mi fruit, learns Luffy has arrived and begins to hunt him down. Luffy visits the same bar Roger once did. The old bartender remembers Roger fondly and sees the same spirit in Luffy. As he leaves, Smoker spots him and gives chase, amazed by Luffy's fearless smile that reminds him of Roger's. Meanwhile, Zoro finds a sword shop run by an old man and meets Tashigi, who looks just like his late friend Kuina. Zoro picks two blades, the cursed Sandai Kitetsu and Yubashiri, a fine sword given by the shopkeeper. To test the curse, Zoro tosses Kitetsu into the air and holds out his arm. The blade misses, proving his luck. As everyone goes about their errands, dark clouds gather over Logtown. Buggy and Alvida arrive, now allies, and start causing chaos. Curious, Luffy climbs the execution platform, not realizing it's the very spot Roger died. Kabaji slams a set of stocks down on Luffy, trapping him. Buggy declares his intention to publicly execute Luffy right there on the same platform where Gold Roger died. Smoker surrounds the area but waits to strike until Buggy finishes. Zoro and Sanji race to save Luffy, while Nami and Usopp hurry to the ship as the storm worsens. Tied up on the platform, Luffy laughs and shouts, "I'm going to be king of the pirates!" Just as Buggy raises his blade, lightning strikes the platform, destroying it and saving Luffy. Buggy is electrocuted as rain pours down. Smoker watches stunned, recalling Roger's final moments. Luffy's smile is the same. Luffy escapes with Zoro and Sanji, but Smoker chases them through the streets. When he corners Luffy and traps him with smoke, a cloaked man appears, Dragon. Dragon summons fierce winds that blow Smoker away and help Luffy escape. When Smoker demands to know who he is, Dragon says only, "The storm of fate has arrived." At the docks, Nami and Usopp prepare the Going Merry as Marines close in. Usopp fights them off with his slingshot, giving Sanji time to board. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji leap onto the ship under cannon fire, and the storm's winds carry them out to sea toward Reverse Mountain, the gateway to the Grand Line. Everyone decide to chase them to the Grand Line as they gather up in different teams. The journey continues as the Straw Hat Pirates slide down Reverse Mountain into the Grand Line. A thick fog surrounds them. Zoro hears a strange sound, but Nami says it's just the wind. Sanji sees a mountain ahead, but when the fog clears, it's actually a giant whale. At their speed, they're about to crash. Zoro tells them to steer left, but Usopp reminds everyone the helm is broken. Zoro runs to help while Luffy goes below deck with an idea. Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji try to pull the helm, but it won't move. Right before they hit the whale, Luffy fires a cannon. The ship slows but still hits the whale. Only the figurehead breaks, angering Luffy. The whale doesn't react. Zoro tells everyone to escape while it still ignores them. As they pass its eye, Luffy punches it in anger. The whale finally notices and sucks in the water, and the Straw Hats, with Luffy barely holding onto a tooth. He climbs on top as his crew is swallowed. On the whale, Luffy yells for his friends to be released, but it dives. He sees a door on its back. Inside, the crew lands on a small island with a fake blue sky. A giant squid appears, but something on the island kills it instantly. Nami wants to go home, and Usopp wishes Luffy was there. They both worry about him. Meanwhile, Luffy wanders lost through a strange passage. An old man steps out of a house, drags the squid, sits, and reads the newspaper. Sanji yells at him, and Usopp threatens him. Calmly, the old man says someone would die if they fought. Sanji is annoyed. Zoro tries politeness. The man introduces himself, Crocus, keeper of the Twin Capes lighthouse. Usopp asks if they're really inside a whale. Nami panics about being digested. Crocus strikes another dramatic pose, but the crew tells him to stop. He points out a strange door in the sky, revealing the surroundings are painted. Crocus proudly admits he painted it for fun. Suddenly, the island shakes. Nami notices it's iron and chained down. Crocus explains Laboon, the whale, is ramming the red line again. Nami remembers his scars and cries. She and Usopp even think Crocus wants to kill the whale. Zoro says they should leave before the ship dissolves. Elsewhere, Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday sneak around with guns. The Straw Hats try to escape, but the waves are strong. Crocus dives and swims away. Luffy falls in a slanted tunnel inside the whale. The intruders plan to kill Crocus for the whale. Crocus climbs back inside the whale. Before they can act, Luffy falls from above and knocks them into digestive juice. Crocus reaches a hidden area, injects the whale with sedative, and calms it. The Straw Hats rescue Luffy and the intruders. Crocus warns them not to harm Laboon. They fire bazookas, but Crocus blocks the blast. They claim the town needs Laboon's meat, until Luffy knocks them out with one punch. Crocus thanks Luffy, who says he just didn't want harm to happen. Nami asks who the intruders were. Crocus explains they wanted Laboon's meat to feed their town for years. Laboon is an island whale from West Blue, largest of its kind, and keeps ramming the red line because he has a human-like heart and waits 50 years for a pirate crew. Crocus tells Laboon's story. 50 years ago, the Rumbar pirates entered the Grand Line with the young whale following them. Crocus befriended them, and they asked him to care for Laboon, promising to return in 3 years. Laboon agreed to wait no matter what. The Straw Hats understand Laboon's pain. Crocus, a doctor, treats Laboon's wounds from inside. Luffy asks him to join the crew, but he refuses. He guides them out through a tunnel. Crocus believes the Rumbar pirates abandoned Laboon. The crew wonders why he never told the whale. Crocus says Laboon wouldn't listen, but he won't abandon him. Luffy breaks the ship's mast and challenges Laboon. They fight until Luffy declares a draw. He calls Laboon his rival and promises a rematch after their journey, painting a Jolly Roger on the whale's face. Mr. 9 and Miss Wednesday escape but drop their log pose, which Luffy picks up. They return to their boss, but Mr. 13 and Miss Friday drop a bomb on them. Nami learns normal compasses don't work on the Grand Line. Crocus explains the log pose records Island's magnetic fields and eventually leads to Laugh Tale. Usopp asks about the One Piece. Crocus says only Gold D, Roger, reached it. Luffy says they'll see when they get there. Luffy eats all the food, so Sanji kicks him. The log pose breaks. Nami kicks both of them. Crocus offers his own log pose as thanks. Laboon spits out Luffy, Sanji, Mr. 9, and Miss Wednesday. The intruders ask to travel to Whiskey Peak. Crocus wants the Straw Hats to leave them, but Luffy agrees to take them home. The Straw Hats sail toward Whiskey Peak. Nami notices the Grand Line's wild weather and guides the crew back on course. At Whiskey Peak, the intruders swim ashore. Nami warns no one can leave until the log pose resets. The townspeople warmly welcome the Straw Hats, surprising them. Nami and Zoro join a drinking contest. Sanji charms local women, Usopp boasts, and Luffy eats nonstop. Nami wins. After the party, Igaram reveals the townspeople are bounty hunters aiming to capture the Straw Hats. Zoro knew from the start and fights them, causing chaos as hunters hit each other. Mr. 8 orders an attack, but Zoro easily overpowers them, dodging bullets, explosions, and odd attacks. Inside a bar, Nami wakes sober, realizing the town is a trap. Zoro keeps fighting waves of hunters, showing off his swords. Miss Monday briefly overpowers him, but he defeats her with one hand. Agents explain their ranking system. Mr. 8 says Marines mistakenly think Zoro is the Straw Hats' captain. Miss Wednesday, Mr. 9, and Mr. 8 attack him, but Zoro outmaneuvers them. Chaos escalates when Miss Wednesday threatens sleeping Luffy. Zoro drags Mr. 9 into danger, sending all three flying. Far away, the Unluckies arrive just as Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine show up. Instead of helping their fellow agents, they blow them up. Mr. 9 thanks them, thinking they came to assist, but they reveal their true mission: eliminate the agents who know too much, especially Miss Wednesday, who is actually Princess Nefertari Vivi of Alabasta. Igaram, revealed to be the captain of Alabasta's royal guard, attacks Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine to protect Vivi. But the two Baroque Works officers easily withstand the assault. Smoke fills the air as Mr. 5 fires a deadly explosive attack that knocks Igaram down. Vivi cries out for him. Zoro drags the still sleeping Luffy away from the danger. Igaram, barely conscious, begs Vivi to escape for the sake of Alabasta. Furious, Vivi prepares to fight, but Mr. 9 steps in, telling her to run while he buys time. He attacks with acrobatics, but is instantly blown away by one of Mr. 5's explosive boogers. Vivi is horrified. Zoro watches from above, confused. Igaram grabs Zoro's leg and begs him to protect Vivi, promising a reward. Zoro refuses since they had tried to kill him earlier. Then Nami appears, having overheard everything. The moment she hears the word reward, she demands 1 billion berries to protect Vivi. Igaram says he can't promise that, but Nami pressures him until he says they can negotiate with Vivi later. She orders Zoro to help, even though he doesn't want to. After a frustrating argument, Zoro reluctantly sets off. Nami reminds Zoro about the money he owes her, which angers him even more, but he still goes after Vivi. Nami comforts Igaram by assuring him that Zoro is strong enough to protect her. Vivi and Karoo try to escape to the ships. Luffy, still bloated from eating, wakes up in a river, sees the destruction from Zoro's fight, and staggers onward. Vivi is soon blocked by Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine again. Miss Monday appears and tells Vivi which road leads to the ships. She decides to stay behind and hold off the assassins. Vivi hesitates, but Miss Monday tells her to go, otherwise everyone's sacrifices would be wasted. Vivi thanks her and flees. Miss Monday bravely confronts Mr. Five but is brutally defeated in an explosion. Vivi stops running when she hears it and stares in horror at the flames. Mr. Five and Miss Valentine explain their devil fruit powers and say Vivi has no chance. Just as Mr. Five prepares to finish her, Zoro blocks attacks and tells Miss Wednesday to stop panicking. Meanwhile, Nami keeps questioning Igaram about Baroque Works. He explains it's a secret criminal organization focused on sabotage, assassination, and bounty hunting. Higher-ranked agents get more power. Miss Valentine guesses that Zoro defeated all the bounty hunters in Whiskey Peak. Mr. Five wonders why he would protect Vivi. Zoro simply says he has his own reasons, and Mr. Five replies they will have to kill him for interfering. Zoro and Mr. Five are about to fight when an angry shout stops them. Luffy has arrived. Vivi is confused, and Zoro says he can handle the enemies alone, but instead of helping, Luffy starts yelling at Zoro. He thinks Zoro attacked innocent people because the townsfolk tricked him earlier. Zoro tries to explain, but Luffy refuses to listen and challenges him. Zoro keeps trying to talk, but Luffy charges at him. Zoro dodges and tells him to calm down. Miss Valentine and Mr. Five decide to focus on their mission to kill Vivi, but Zoro kicks the bloated Luffy straight into them, sending all three flying. Annoyed, Mr. Five says he will kill both Zoro and Luffy. He attacks Luffy while Zoro and Vivi watch. Miss Valentine floats into the air to attack Zoro and Vivi next. Vivi panics and tells Zoro to run, but he ignores her. Suddenly, Luffy walks out of the smoke. He has digested all his food and is dragging a beaten, bloodied Mr. Five behind him. Vivi is shocked that Luffy defeated such a strong enemy so easily. Luffy turns back to Zoro, still refusing to believe him. Miss Valentine gets irritated that they keep ignoring her while she floats above. Zoro finally gives up trying to explain. He dodges Miss Valentine's attack and prepares to fight Luffy. Vivi watches in disbelief as they launch powerful attacks. Both smash into walls but burst out quickly and keep fighting. Mr. Five and Miss Valentine complain the pirates are making fun of Baroque Works. They charge in, but Luffy and Zoro knock them out instantly for getting in the way. With the enemy agents defeated, Luffy and Zoro get ready to continue their own fight, until Nami appears and knocks both of them out cold. Luffy finally understands what really happened in Whiskey Peak. Nami then demands that Vivi pay a 1 billion berry fee for escorting her to Alabasta. Vivi says her kingdom is in chaos and she probably can't pay. She explains that she learned years ago that Baroque Works has been manipulating Alabasta to overthrow her father. She asked Igaram to help her infiltrate the group and discover the leader's identity. Vivi hesitates to say the boss's name because it puts their life in danger, but she accidentally reveals it. Mr. Zero is Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. The Unluckies appear quietly, draw wanted sketches of Luffy, Zoro, and Nami, and fly away. Nami is furious that Vivi exposed them by mistake. Vivi apologizes repeatedly, but Nami stays angry. Luffy and Zoro, however, are excited that a warlord is after them. Nami complains that the Grand Line has only brought them trouble. Igaram returns dressed like Vivi, carrying 3 dummies that look like the Straw Hats. He says he will act as a decoy and sail straight to Alabasta using Vivi's eternal pose. Vivi should instead travel with the Straw Hats, island by island, so Baroque Works cannot track her easily. He adds that before Crocodile became a warlord, he had an 80 million berry bounty. Luffy accepts the challenge immediately. Moments after Igaram leaves, his ship explodes in a huge blast. Furious, Luffy runs back to the Mary to set sail. Nami comforts Vivi, promising they will fight Baroque Works and protect her. Luffy drags Sanji and Usopp to the ship. Karoo is already waiting. A mysterious woman appears. Miss All Sunday, Crocodile's partner. She claims she blew up Igaram's ship. Luffy asks who she is. She says she's curious about Vivi's mission, but calls it foolish. She disarms the crew instantly. Sanji falls for her beauty. She shows Nami that the log pose points to Little Garden and gives Vivi an eternal pose for safe travel. Vivi hesitates. Luffy crushes the pose, refusing an outsider to decide their path, and angrily tells her off. Miss All Sunday laughs, liking his spirit, and leaves on a giant sea turtle. Vivi collapses. The crew explains everything to Usopp and Sanji. Miss All Sunday wonders how the Straw Hats will handle Little Garden. A jungle, tiger, and giant footprint are shown. Aboard the Mary, Luffy asks Vivi, and she explains that the last sea had strange magnetic forces. She warns them not to underestimate the Grand Line. Vivi gets annoyed because the crew isn't serious, until a huge dolphin attacks the ship. The Straw Hats react instantly, showing they can handle danger. Soon they spot the foggy island of Little Garden. The crew gets excited for their second Grand Line stop. Meanwhile, Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week enjoy tea and discussing Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week, 5 and Miss Valentine's defeat. Mr. 3 calls Mr. 5 an overconfident fool and promises to show the Straw Hats the true terror of Baroque works. As the crew approaches Little Garden, Sanji is attacked by a giant bird. A huge tiger appears beside the ship but collapses, bleeding heavily. Luffy says they should explore the island, and Vivi joins him because she wants to clear her mind. Zoro goes for a walk and Sanji tells him to bring back anything edible. They argue and rush to compete for the bigger catch. Hearing strange sounds, Nami remembers something about the island and checks her books. Luffy and Vivi find a squid-like shellfish as huge footsteps approach. Sanji almost gets eaten by a T-Rex, while Zoro runs into a Triceratops wondering if it's edible. Luffy and Vivi meet a Brachiosaurus, and Vivi realizes the island is untouched because nothing leaves the Grand Line, keeping its ecosystem frozen in time. As Nami explains the creatures to Usopp, a giant silhouette appears. Nami and Usopp panic at a massive figure approaching the Going Merry. The giant asks for alcohol. Nami says they only have cooking and medical alcohol. Suddenly, a T-Rex bites him from behind. The giant cuts off its head and introduces himself as Brogy, claiming to be Elbaf's strongest warrior. He calls Nami and Usopp his guests, but they are so terrified they pretend to be dead. Meanwhile, Luffy and Vivi explore. Luffy climbs the Brachiosaurus but is swallowed. A giant slices the dinosaur's neck, catches him, and introduces himself as Dory, another Elbaf warrior, inviting them to his home. Brogy brings Nami and Usopp to his place and cooks dinosaur meat, but they fear he will eat them and try to escape. After being chased by bigger predators, they end up right back at Brogy's feet. Dory explains to Luffy, Vivi, and Karoo that he and Brogy have been dueling for 100 years, fighting whenever the central volcano erupts. In the jungle, Mr. 3, Mr. 5, and Miss Valentine prepare to claim the Giant's bounties. Usopp admires Brogy's strength and calls him master. After another draw, Brogy gives Dory 2 barrels of alcohol taken from Nami and Usopp. Dory drinks one, but it explodes inside him, and he blames the Straw Hats. Luffy has to fight the weakened Dory and knocks him out. When the volcano erupts again, Dory gets up and goes to fight, even injured. He traps Luffy under a huge rock so he won't interfere. Dory and Brogy clash again. Zoro finds Nami in the forest and senses something is wrong. Nami finds Luffy but is attacked right away. Usopp runs in fear until he meets Vivi and Luffy. Vivi guesses Baroque works caused the explosion and the disappearance. Mr. 3's plan works. Brogy unknowingly defeats Dory. Heartbroken, Brogy cries, but Mr. 3 traps his legs in wax. Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine bring Karoo to Dory's home and beat him while he's down. They quickly defeat Usopp and Vivi. After beating Luffy again, Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine take Vivi to the duel site, where Mr. 3 is covering Brogy in even more wax. Then he builds a giant cake-shaped stand and traps Vivi, Nami, and Zoro on top, adding spinning candles that will slowly turn them into wax statues. He proudly explains how he rigged the duel. Brogy gets furious and tries to break free, but Mr. 5 knocks him out again, and Mr. 3 strengthens the wax. Meanwhile, Karoo digs Luffy out from under the rock. Luffy, Karoo, and Usopp arrive as Zoro tries to cut off his own legs to escape. Mr. 3 decides to fight Luffy, while Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine handle Usopp and Karoo. He traps Luffy's feet in wax, but Luffy breaks part of the structure holding his friends. The wax breaks off his legs, but the statues harden even faster. Luffy tries again to destroy the giant candle service set, but Mr. 3 blocks him with candle walls. Usopp tries to blow it up with an exploding star, but Mr. 5 eats it with no problem. Luffy almost beats Mr. 3, but Miss Golden Week uses her colors trap to hypnotize him. She paints a mark that makes Luffy betray his friends. Vivi tricks him off the paint, but Miss Golden Week draws another symbol on his back, making him laugh helplessly. Usopp finds Luffy calmly drinking tea with Miss Golden Week, while the others are nearly fully waxed, burning. Usopp burns the shirt she painted on him, freeing Luffy from hypnosis. Luffy tries to destroy the pedestal, but Mr. 3 comes back in a huge wax suit to fight him. Usopp is blasted by Mr. 5 but still manages to make Karoo run around an oil-soaked rope to ignite it. Luffy uses Mr. 3's flaming hair to set it ablaze, destroying the structure and freeing Zoro, Nami, and Vivi. As they break free from the flames, Miss Valentine is defeated. Zoro finishes Mr. 5. Luffy and Karoo chase and defeat Mr. 3 and Miss Golden Week. Meanwhile, Sanji finds Mr. 3's hideout and answers a Denden Mushi from Mr. 0. Pretending to be Mr. 3, he claims Vivi and the crew are dead. The Unluckies deliver an eternal pose to Alabasta, attack Sanji, but he defeats them. Crocodile orders Mr. 3 to return to Alabasta, and after the call, tells Miss All Sunday to send Mr. 2 to eliminate him. Brogy cries over Dory's death, but Dory wakes. He explains Broggy's axe only knocked him out. Using the eternal pose, the Straw Hats set sail. Broggy and Dory help them by killing a giant predator trying to eat the Going Merry. They remember the reason for their duel. Long ago, after each killed a Sea King, a little girl asked which one was bigger. They came to Little Garden to settle it and stayed for a century. On the Merry, Usopp dreams about visiting Elbaf someday, and Luffy happily agrees, and they dance until they almost fall overboard. Meanwhile, Nami hands Vivi the eternal pose. Vivi remembers she must survive to save Alabasta. Sanji comforts them while Luffy, Usopp, and Karoo drool over food, which he scolds them for. Zoro trains alone, ashamed he couldn't save everyone during the candle trap. Elsewhere, Mr. Tubon Kure receives a departure alert. Back on the Merry, Nami collapses from her condition. She pretends she's fine, but everyone is worried. Nami warns Zoro of a strange wind. He orders a course change, avoiding a cyclone and falling snow. Nami rests while Vivi tends to her. Zoro spots a man on the water. Walpole pirates attack the Merry. Their captain Walpole eats a meat skewer, stick and all, then his sword, revealing he ate the Munch Munch fruit, letting him eat anything. Luffy gets angry when Walpole eats part of the ship and fights him. The crew joins except Usopp. Luffy blasts Walpole away with Gomu Gomu no rocket. A quick flashback shows a Smoker and Tashigi overhear the call between Sanji and Crocodile. They decide to head for Alabasta. On the Merry, Luffy tries to cheer Nami but fails. The crew anchors for the night. Nami wakes, sees her friends asleep, smiles, and goes back to sleep. Sanji keeps watch. Vivi explains the cold signals an island is close. Sanji spots land. They reach Drum Island, but villagers threaten them. Dalton orders them to leave. A villager fires at Sanji but misses. Sanji prepares to fight, but Vivi steps in and is shot. Luffy, furious, prepares to attack, but Vivi hugs him, telling him a captain shouldn't solve everything with fighting. Luffy calms down and apologizes. Dalton understands and invites them to follow him. Vivi smiles and Luffy compliments her. They walk with Dalton, encountering a hiking bear. Usopp suggests playing dead and everyone quietly passes. On the Going Merry, Zoro says his legs are healed. Shirtless, he trains while Karoo watches. Dalton introduces Bighorn and sends non-guards home. Dalton invites the crew to rest at his house. Nami lies in bed while Vivi covers her. Dalton introduces himself as security squad captain. He feels he's seen Vivi before. Vivi nervously changes the topic, asking about Nami's fever. Dalton explains the Drum Rockies and mentions Dr. Kureha at the old drum castle. Luffy decides to climb the mountain with Nami on his back. Nami agrees. Sanji joins. Dalton warns them to avoid the main path because of Lapons. After they leave, Usopp and Vivi watch them go. Dalton stays with them and explains Drum Island's history. The island was famous for doctors until 5 months ago when pirates attacked. Their captain called himself Blackbeard. Some thought the kingdom's fall was deserved because of the corrupt king, Walpole. Luffy and Sanji run through the snow as a Lapon attacks. Sanji kicks it away. Soon a large herd blocks their path. Meanwhile, Walpole sees Drum Island from his ship and warns his crew. Sanji tells Luffy not to fight the Lapon because Nami would be affected and uses Flanche Shoot to knock one away. Elsewhere, Kureha operates on a sick boy, gives him medicine, and charges a huge fee, but gives a tiny discount when thanked. Dalton explains how Walpole limited doctors and created the Ishi 20, making Vivi angry. Dalton realizes Vivi is the princess. At the coast, Walpole's pirates attack the Watchmen. Walpole rides Robson while Chess rebuilds the drum castle symbol. Usopp learns the doctor went to Castella. An injured watchman reports Walpole to Dalton. Luffy and Sanji are caught in a Lapon-triggered avalanche. They climb a cliff, but the snow still hits them. Villagers prepare for Walpole's arrival. Walpole eats buildings as he marches. Kuromaru says the Straw Hats are looking for a doctor. Dalton reaches Bighorn and attacks Walpole, but the Ishi 20 heal him. Dalton pleads, but Dalton transforms into Bison Human. Chess and Kuromaru comment on each other. Luffy continues to the mountain but is stopped by Walpole's men. The Lapon he helped protects him, letting Luffy escape. They find Zoro buried in snow. Walpole's men defeat the Lapons. Zoro, Vivi, and Usopp reach Bighorn and see chaos. Zoro recognizes the soldiers, defeats them, and takes their warm coats and swords. Villagers thank Zoro and dig for Dalton. Usopp helps. After a long struggle, Luffy reaches the top. Chopper brings them inside. Kureha and Chopper treat the crew. Chopper identifies Nami's illness as a Keisei bite. Nami wakes and meets Chopper, who is nervous and clumsy. Kureha explains the bite could have killed her in 2 days. Chopper watches over Luffy and Sanji. Luffy wakes hungry, scares Chopper, and they chase him until they see Nami. Kureha explains Chopper is a reindeer who ate the Hito Hito no Mi, letting him talk and walk like a human. Chopper transforms into a strong form to escape. Kureha says she raised him in medicine. Walpole and his men search for Luffy. Everyone digs for Dalton, who is found without a pulse. Kureha tells Nami Chopper's sad past. He was born with a blue nose, rejected by reindeer and humans, and even more after eating the devil fruit. Sanji and Luffy try to close a gate, but Chopper protects a bird nest. Sanji calls him a monster, making him run. Luffy likes him and wants him on the crew. In the lab, Luffy startles Chopper, but he catches falling glassware. Luffy tickles him and asks him to join, but Chopper runs. Sanji brings Nami food. Kureha enters, Sanji calls her Madam, and she kicks him. Luffy keeps chasing Chopper until Kureha hears the word Nakama and begins telling Hiriluk's story. Years ago, Hiriluk escaped soldiers during the doctor hunt. He treated a sick man with a strange frog medicine that turned him green. Soldiers came and Hiriluk fled, briefly meeting Kureha, then running into injured Chopper. Chopper attacked Hiriluk, but he proved he meant no harm. Chopper woke, ate bread, and cried. After 3 days, Chopper spoke for the first time. They visited villages but were chased away. After a small fight, Hiriluk gave Chopper a hat and told a story about miracles and cherry blossoms. One day, Hiriluk forced Chopper out and asked Kureha how long he had left. 10 days. He wanted to show Chopper that anything is possible. Chopper remembers soldiers talking about a miraculous mushroom. He searched Hiriluk's books and went to find it. He met a reindeer herd. One headbutted him, but he fought back. He found the mushroom, but was badly beaten. He returned to Hiriluk with a broken leg and swollen eye. Hiriluk hugged him, calling him kind-hearted, cooked the mushroom, and sent Chopper to rest. Kureha arrived, revealed the mushroom was poisonous, and taught Chopper that kindness alone isn't enough. Knowledge is needed. Chopper cried. Hiriluk reached the castle, but Wapol revealed it was a trap. Chopper ran up the mountain too late. Hiriluk blew himself up. Dalton stopped Chopper, saying he would die too, and vowed to carry on Hiriluk's will before being imprisoned. Back in the present, Luffy spots Wapol and his crew. Chopper informs Kureha. Chess points out Drum Castle's flag. Luffy attacks Wapol with a Gomu Gomu no pistol, sending him flying, but his subordinates catch him. Luffy enters the castle to find warm clothes, while Sanji protects Kureha from afros thrown by Kuromarimo. The afros stick and catch fire when Chess shoots arrows. Luffy borrows Nami's jacket and attacks Wapol. Wapol becomes Baku Baku Factory, eats Chess and Kuromarimo, then releases them and shoots Hiriluk's Jolly Roger. Luffy catches and raises the flag, charging Wapol and his subordinates. Chopper takes a rumble ball, fights Chess Marimo, dodges arrows, and smashes hammers using Brain Point. Luffy watches. Wapol sneaks into Drum Castle. The Ishii-20 revive Dalton, and he is helped by Usopp and Zoro toward the mountain. Inside, Chopper tells Kureha that Luffy calls him a friend. Nami grabs a coat to escape. Wapol chases her and tries to eat her, but Luffy stops him. Nami scolds Luffy for damaging her jacket. Wapol looks for the armory to eat its weapons, but finds the key missing, running up the stairs with Luffy following. At the castle dome, Wapol shows the Royal Drum Crown 7-shot Blick Blick cannon, but finds it empty. Only snowbirds fly out. Outside, everyone watch via the ropeway. Dalton carries dynamite, ready to destroy the castle if needed. Luffy catches Wapol's attack with his rubber fingers and fires him upward with Gomu Gomu no Ogon, leaving Hiriluk's flag waving on the castle. Luffy reunites with Zoro, Usopp, Vivi, and Dalton. Chopper hides behind a tree, recognized by Dalton for his bravery. Villagers call him a monster, but Luffy declares him a new crewmate. Luffy chases him to officially join. Kureha treats the wounded and negotiates the armory key with Nami. Chopper hesitates but finally joins the Straw Hats, moved by Luffy's acceptance. Chopper rushes to tell Kureha, but she immediately starts yelling at him, asking how he could even think of leaving. She insists he could never want to be a pirate. He's just a reindeer and a doctor. He can't abandon his duties. Kureha throws weapons at him, and Chopper flees with Kureha in hot pursuit. Using Kureha's sleigh, Chopper carries the Straw Hats down the ropeway, astonishing the villagers along the way. Kureha confides in Dalton that she hates saying goodbye, her eyes welling with tears. Hiriluk's dream finally comes true. As the villagers fire the cannons, the snow turns pink, like falling sakura petals. Chopper and the villagers are deeply moved to tears. On the Going Merry, the crew enjoys Drum Island's Sakura effect. Luffy entertains everyone, and Chopper warms up to his new friends. He talks to animals, and Nami notes his medical skills from Kureha. The crew teases him, but he begins to enjoy being part of the group. Back on Drum Island, Kureha and Dalton talk about the kingdom's future. Dalton recalls Vivi's father, King Cobra, and Wapol's past misdeeds, respecting Vivi's dignity. The Ishii-20 pledge loyalty to Dalton. A messenger delivers Luffy's wanted poster to Dalton. A man named Ace asks them to tell Luffy if he comes this way, he will be waiting for him in Alabasta for 10 days. Kureha remarks that the will of D lives on. The next day, Chopper sits at the bar with Luffy, amazed by the ocean. A giant bird swoops down. Luffy plays with it and then gives it to Sanji as food. Nami reminds everyone they are heading to Alabasta. The crew explains their mission: return Vivi to stop Crocodile's coup. Vivi describes Baroque Works' hierarchy: 5 officer-agent pairs, 8 frontier agents, and thousands of subordinates. Luffy is excited to fight Crocodile. Meanwhile, Mr. 2 punishes the Navigator for failing to kill Mr. 3. Crocodile and Miss All Sunday discuss the threat to Alabasta. Later, Luffy and Usopp save Mr. 2 from drowning. While waiting for his ship, he shows his main Know My Power, which lets him copy anyone's face he touches. Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper are amazed, and Vivi notices he has copied her father. Later, Mr. 2's ship arrives, showing he is a Baroque Works officer. To avoid confusion, the crew wraps bandages around their arms so he cannot copy them. Arriving at Alabasta, Nami urges good behavior, but Luffy runs off to find food. Vivi explains she plans to go to Yuba, where the rebel army is, but the only way is across the desert. At the restaurant, the young man from earlier sits at a plate of food. Everyone thinks he is dead from a venomous bite, but he wakes, wipes his face, and keeps eating. After dozing again, he asks Yoshimoto about Luffy. Smoker arrives, notices the commotion, and identifies the man as Portgas D. Ace, 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, surprising everyone. Ace explains he is searching for his brother, Luffy. Luffy runs through Nanohana following food smells. Smoker plans to capture Ace but focuses on Luffy instead. Using Gomu Gomu no Rocket, Luffy smashes the restaurant and surrounding walls to get food. He eats quickly as Ace apologizes to a family for the mess. Smoker recognizes Luffy from Logetown and chases him. Luffy, knowing he cannot beat Smoker alone, searches for his crew while Smoker orders Tashigi to track the Straw Hats. Luffy arrives to everyone with Smoker close behind. Ace blocks Smoker's attack with Hyken, showing he has eaten the Mera Mera no Mi, the flame fruit. Ace tells Luffy to run while he holds off Smoker. Luffy announces to his crew that Ace is his brother, shocking them. The crew escapes to the Going Merry as Ace fights Smoker. Nami asks about Ace's relation to Luffy, and he confirms it. They reach the ship and load supplies, but Luffy is missing. Luffy waits in an alley, unsure where the crew went. Ace greets him from a roof and invites Luffy and the crew to join the Whitebeard Pirates, but Luffy refuses. On Smoker's ship, Mr. 11 is tied to the mast. Billions try to get promoted by capturing Ace, but when Mr. 11 asks to be untied, they shoot him instead. They hear Ace is in town and see a chance for promotion. Luffy and Ace look for the crew, unaware Billions surround them. A fight breaks out, but Luffy defeats the leader with Gomu Gomu no Bazooka. Spotting the ship, Luffy stretches his arms to reach it. Ace arrives in his boat and destroys 5 approaching ships with Hyken attacks. Smoker questions Tashigi about Vivi, but concludes she seems friendly with the Straw Hats. He senses something big is coming. On the Going Merry, Usopp, Luffy, and Chopper toast to Ace joining them, but he declines, saying he seeks Blackbeard for killing a crewmate. Nami notes they are going to Yuba, the same place as Ace. Vivi explains the route, and they all toast together. On shore, Vivi gives Karoo a letter for his father about Baroque Works plans. Karoo leaves quickly to deliver it. On the ship, Ace warns Zoro that Crocodile may have bigger plans. The crew reaches the desert. Chopper notes the heat, and Nami says it is over 50 degrees Celsius. Vivi warns that skin exposed to the sun will burn. Sanji complains about their clothes but follows. Zoro spots Kung Fu dugongs in the water. Luffy mistakes them for seals, fights them, and learns they can't cross the desert. They say goodbye. At Eromeru, Vivi explains it is now a ghost town. Dance powder caused droughts called the King's Miracle. Luffy destroys a building in anger, eager to continue. Later, he makes the crew play Rock, Paper, Hami to decide who carries equipment. At the rocks, Luffy finds moaning birds and rushes to Chopper for help. Returning, they find Waragi birds have stolen their things. Luffy chases the birds, and carnivorous plants swallow him briefly. He saves a camel named Matsu, who carries Nami and Vivi through the desert. The crew continues. On the way to Yuba Oasis, Vivi plans to meet the rebel army. Luffy, Usopp, and Sanji fight over water. Nami asks Vivi about the rebels. Vivi tells events from 11 years ago. Young Koza confronted King Cobra over a drought. Toto intervened, and the king promised to help. Vivi sees Koza running, and later he becomes the Suna Suna clan's assistant leader, forming a close bond with her family. Koza protects Vivi from kidnappers, gets injured, and praised by Cobra. He leaves to help build Yuba, telling Vivi to be a great princess. Vivi explains to Nami that Koza leads the rebel army. Before leaving, Ace gives Luffy a paper, promising to meet next at the Pirates Summit. Luffy treasures it, and Nami sews it into his hat. Vivi notes that Yuba is just beyond a distant rock. In Crocodile's lair, he and Miss All Sunday discuss their plan. She says everything is ready and they can act in 2 days. Crocodile is happy and mentions agents from Spider Cafe will meet them in Rain Base. At Spider Cafe, the agents gather, but Mr. 1 is missing. The others want to leave. Mr. 2 and his men dance, but Mr. 1 bursts through the wall, knocking over one of them. A fight starts, but Miss Doublefinger stops it, saying they must go to Rain Base to meet the boss. They leave in a carriage. Luffy and the crew arrive at Yuba, now ruined by a sandstorm. The town is empty. The only resident is the founder Todo, who recognizes Vivi. She realizes he is the same man from her childhood. His son leads the rebel army. Todo is loyal to the crown and regrets his son's rebellion. Vivi and Todo share a strong bond. The group stays in Yuba overnight. Todo tells how prosperous the town once was before the drought. Luffy learns that Todo was tasked by Cobra to watch the land and finds a way to stop the sandstorm. At Rain Base, the officer agents learn their leader is Mr. Zero, Crocodile, and that they must overthrow Alabasta. Mr. 3 reports the Straw Hats are alive. Crocodile punishes him by dropping him into a banana wani pit. Miss All Sunday orders the rebel army to eliminate everyone there. The Straw Hats head to Katareya, but Luffy stops them. He tells Vivi his plan to defeat Crocodile and calls her plan to stop the rebellion naive. They argue, but Vivi says she will risk herself only. Luffy urges her to trust friends and fight together. Moved to tears, Vivi agrees and shows a map marking Alubarna, Katoria, and Rain Base, the warlords' base a day away. On the way, Usopp asks for water, but Luffy refuses since Todo filled it all night. At the rebel army base in Katareya, a boy wants to fight with the rebels, but Koza refuses, explaining that most fight only out of duty. He plans to gather weapons from all rebel towns before attacking Alubarna. In Alubarna, Chaka urges King Cobra to act against the rebels. Cobra refuses, recalling the dance powder incident, and wants to find who is behind it first. While Chaka and Pell discuss, the palace guard informs them that Karoo has returned. They rush to see Karoo and find Cobra reading the letter Vivi wrote, informing him that Crocodile is who is trying to destroy Alabasta. Preparations start. Chaka organizes the war council. Pell scouts ahead. Meanwhile, Luffy's group reaches Rain Base and tries to hide, but Luffy and Usopp loudly enter a bar next to Smoker and Tashigi. They flee, chased by Marines, splitting up to regroup at Rain Dinner's casino. Chopper, returning from the restroom, notices everyone has separated. Vivi and Zoro are chased, but Zoro lets her go ahead. They all meet at Rain Dinners, with Zoro and Luffy avoiding Smoker. Inside the casino, Crocodile and Miss All Sunday learn they are there. Luffy's group notices Vivi is missing, and Miss All Sunday sends everyone to the VIP room. A trapdoor drops Luffy's group and Smoker into a prison cell. In the cell, Luffy feels weak. Smoker hits him with his Sea Stone Jitta, stopping his devil fruit powers. As Zoro is about to fight, Crocodile interrupts, telling them to cooperate until a guest arrives. Outside, Vivi fights Baroque Works agents but is saved by Pell. Miss All Sunday appears, overpowers both, and takes Vivi to the casino. Inside, Vivi attacks Crocodile, but he is untouchable, having eaten the Sunasuna no Mi, sand fruit. He tells her to sit as the party starts. Operation Utopia, the plan to take over Alabasta, begins. Crocodile explains his plan. The king is kidnapped and replaced by Mr. 2, who orders Nanohana destroyed. Koza intervenes but is wounded. Mr. 1 and Miss Doublefinger crash into Nanohana on a pirate ship. Citizens flee, the royal army burns the city, and the rebels are blamed. Koza leads his forces forward, finding an armory ship, calling it Divine Guidance. At the palace, Chaka is alarmed. The Straw Hats stay imprisoned. Crocodile taunts Vivi with a key, but it falls and is eaten by a banana wani. Crocodile gives them 1 hour as water fills the cell. Crocodile gets a call from Sanji. Vivi leaves to get help, while the casino bridge collapses to block Baroque Works. Chopper distracts Crocodile as Sanji frees the crew. Smoker explains Miss All Sunday's long-standing bounty. Sanji fights Banana Gators to recover the key. Mr. 3 emerges from an alligator, giving the Straw Hats an idea to escape. Crocodile and Miss All Sunday return to find the cell empty. Luffy tells Zoro to save Smoker, and Smoker then allows the crew to escape. They flee east while Smoker calls off the chase and sends reinforcements from nearby marine warships to Alabasta. Chopper and Matsuge ride a giant crab, following Nami's perfume. Matsuge is friends with many animals, including the crab. The Straw Hats head toward Alubarna. Crocodile's hook grabs Vivi and pulls her away. Luffy quickly switches places with her and follows the hook to Crocodile. Before fighting, he tells the others to go straight to Alubarna and take Vivi home. Luffy promises to meet them there and faces Crocodile and Miss All Sunday. Luffy praises Vivi's selflessness. Crocodile mocks her belief and asks if Luffy agrees. He does, but says he will stop Crocodile as Vivi's friend. Crocodile threatens him and calls Miss All Sunday by her real name, Nico Robin, who leaves claiming she is going to Alubarna. Crocodile sets a 3-minute timer and begins the fight. Luffy attacks, but Crocodile turns to sand to avoid it. Luffy's attacks pass through him until a direct punch enrages Crocodile. Crocodile counters with Desert Spada and other sand attacks. Luffy drinks water from Yuba to recover, then attacks Crocodile's head with Gomu Gomu no Baku Baku. Crocodile prepares Sable Sandstorm to destroy Yuba. Luffy is pierced by his hook. Crocodile throws Luffy into quicksand and heads to Alabasta. Meanwhile, Smoker orders Tashigi to decide whether to follow the Straw Hats or help the Royal Army. The Straw Hats to cross a river to Alabasta. Hami runs on water, encouraged by Nami's dancing. Halfway across, he sinks but is saved from a sea monster by the Kung Fu Dugongs, who follow Luffy's orders. They reach shore and see Karoo and the super spot-built duck troops approaching. Luffy struggles in the quicksand, but Nico Robin saves him with her Hana Hana no Mi powers, returning his hat. Pell, still injured, tells Robin to help Luffy while she leaves with Vivi. Luffy, weak and needing meat, rides with Pell toward Alabasta. At the palace, the royal guards prepare for battle. Igaram is still alive. Luffy, despite injuries, wants Crocodile to pay for his actions. The rebel army marches toward Alabasta. Baroque works elites spot Vivi and the Straw Hats approaching on ducks. The Straw Hats split into groups, making it hard for enemies to target them. Vivi and Karoo stay outside Alabasta to stop the rebel and royal armies from fighting. Koza sees them but thinks he is imagining things. A cannon fires early, creating chaos. Vivi is knocked down but saved by Karoo, who is trampled. Vivi cries and vows to stop the conflict. Usopp, disguised on a horse, is actually Mr. 2. Vivi tests him with the crew's bandage signal and confirms he is an enemy. Sanji wakes Usopp and Matsuge after a flashback shows how they used bandages for identification. Sanji fights through the rebel and royal army to reach Vivi, saying he fights only for the ladies. Chopper and Usopp fight Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. 4 using tricks and Mr. 4's dog Lasso. Usopp refuses to believe Luffy is dead, and together they defeat their enemies. Sanji encounters Mr. 2 and quickly overpowers him at first. However, Mr. 2 uses his ability to change his face into Nami's, causing Sanji to hesitate. When Sanji is about to strike, Sanji says there is something on Mr. 2's face. As Mr. 2 touches it, he changes back to his real face and Sanji defeats him. Meanwhile, Zoro and Nami face Mr. 1 and Miss Doublefinger. Nami tries to escape but is chased and studies Usopp's instructions for the climb attack. As she learns the weapon's abilities, she uses Mirage Tempo to create illusions and prepare for a real fight. Crocodile has nailed Cobra to the palace walls. Vivi and Chaka cannot stop him. He demands the location of Pluton, a legendary weapon. Cobra is shocked and says he doesn't know if it exists. Crocodile admits he cannot fully confirm it either, but reveals a backup plan. A bomb is planted in the palace square, set to explode. Crocodile asks Cobra about the poneglyph. Cobra agrees to go with him. Enraged, Chaka prepares to attack Crocodile. Outside Alabasta, Sanji meets Usopp and Chopper, returns Usopp's goggles, and they head to the palace to help Vivi. Meanwhile, Nami, injured and bleeding, she creates a thundercloud and shocks her. When Miss Doublefinger attacks again, Nami uses Mirage Tempo to make illusions and hit her from behind. Remembering Tornado Tempo is a one-time move, she uses it despite her hurt leg, trapping Miss Doublefinger in a tornado and throwing her through buildings, winning the fight. Elsewhere, Zoro fights Mr. 1. He realizes Mr. 1's body is as hard as steel, and ordinary attacks cannot cut him. Zoro recalls his mentor's words. He adapts, senses the rhythm around him, locates his sword, cuts through a rock, and defeats Mr. 1 with a single sword strike. Exhausted, he worries if everyone else is safe. Tsumagari guards charge into the palace to save Cobra. He tells them not to risk their lives, but they insist. Crocodile offers to spare them if they leave, but they refuse. They drink hero water to gain strength, attack Crocodile, but he easily dodges. The guards collapse and die, enraging Chaka, who attacks Crocodile with his Inu Inu no Mi model jackal powers, but cannot hit him. Sanji, Chopper, and Usopp rush to the palace. Usopp cries thinking Luffy is dead while Chopper reassures him. Sanji smiles and asks if they really believed it. They insist Luffy is alive. Vivi finds Chaka bloodied, and a figure calls her. In Palace Square, 25 minutes remain until Crocodile's bomb explodes. Koza sees the dead Tsumagari guards, Chaka, Cobra nailed to the palace wall, and Crocodile controlling everything. Miss All Sunday mocks Koza, telling him to accept the worst. Koza realizes his father was right about Cobra and demands the truth about Alabasta's drought. Crocodile admits he and Baroque works caused all the suffering Koza blamed on Cobra. Cobra tells Koza to save as many citizens as possible, and Chaka warns him about the bomb. Crocodile strikes Chaka, seemingly killing him. Koza runs toward Palace Square, but Vivi pulls him down, urging him to think carefully. She explains warning everyone about the bomb would cause panic and stopping the rebellion is the priority. Crocodile attacks Vivi, but Chaka blocks him, giving them time to escape. Vivi commands the royal army to surrender. Koza orders the army to stop fighting and lowers his weapon. The rebel army sees the white flags and stops attacking. However, Baroque Works agents disguised in the royal army shoot Koza multiple times. Crocodile creates a sandstorm, hiding the battlefield, letting infiltrators continue shooting and restarting the fight. Vivi and Koza try to stop the chaos, but their voices are drowned out. Chaka collapses from his wounds, and Cobra urges Vivi to run, but she refuses, determined to stop the bomb. Crocodile grabs her by the neck and hangs her over a cliff, mocking her for not warning the soldiers. Vivi insists she will never give up. Crocodile notes her 2-year spy work in Baroque works and drops her off the cliff. Luffy flies on Pell, catching Vivi before she hits the ground. She tells them about the bomb. The crew regroups. Luffy apologizes for losing to Crocodile and promises not to lose again, asking the others to handle other matters while he goes to fight Crocodile. Luffy punches Crocodile, making him bleed, and attacks again, finding his weakness. Water stops him from turning to sand. Crocodile tries to dehydrate Luffy's arm, but Luffy drinks water from a barrel, calling himself Water Luffy. He squirts water at Crocodile, letting his attacks hit. Miss All Sunday removes the stakes, impaling Cobra, and Dima Bianti lead her to the Poneglyph. Crocodile tells her to go. As they leave, Crocodile uses ground secco to dry the area, turning it into a desert. Luffy sprays water at him, but Crocodile absorbs it and keeps draining moisture from the palace. With 8 minutes left until the explosion, the Straw Hats rush to find the cannon. Meanwhile, Cobra wonders if Robin is really Miss All Sunday, whose name was famous 20 years ago. On the way to the Poneglyph, they encounter Tashigi and Marines. Robin disables some with her powers, and a Marine recognizes her as the 8-year-old who earned a 79 million bounty for sinking 6 ships. Tashigi sends her men to Palace Square and stays to fight Robin, who easily defeats her. In the palace, the lawn has turned to sand. Crocodile sneaks on Luffy, grabs him by the neck, and absorbs all water from his body, leaving him dehydrated. Crocodile says Luffy lost again. However, water Luffy had sprayed on Crocodile falls back, reviving him. Luffy recovers and searches for them. Luffy meets Tashigi and asks which way Crocodile went. She points the way, scolding herself as he rushes off. Near the tomb, Luffy collapses from bleeding and falls asleep. Robin and Cobra find the Poneglyph. Crocodile reaches them and demands Robin read it. She reads Alabasta's history, not Pluton's location. Angered, Crocodile says she has been useful in Baroque works for 4 years but must die for breaking her promise. Robin tries to attack him but fails. Cobra starts a timer that will destroy the tomb, planning to kill Crocodile and Robin to protect his country. Vivi injures her knee while searching for the bomb. She figures out where the bomb is and has Usopp call the rest of the Straw Hats. Luffy wakes up and starts looking for Crocodile. Crocodile tells Cobra he can turn the tomb's stone to sand and bury them all. Vivi and Usopp are chased by Baroque Works agents and use a chalkboard to distract them. Luffy finds Crocodile, Cobra, and the badly hurt Robin. He demands Crocodile return Vivi's country and hits him twice. Using his own blood, Luffy stops Crocodile from turning into sand. Crocodile reveals his hook is filled with poison. Zoro finds Marines from Tashigi's group, who point him toward the city center. Vivi and Usopp keep running while Tashigi stops their pursuers. Nami and Chopper reach Vivi and Usopp with only 2 minutes left before the bomb explodes. Luffy faces Crocodile while Vivi searches for Pell, believing he may be the only one fast enough to stop the cannon. In the clock tower, Mr. Seven and Miss Father's Day stand guard. Nami then comes up with a plan using one of Usopp's devices. Working together, they launch her through the tower. With only seconds to spare, Vivi manages to cut the bomb's fuse. Luffy is poisoned by Crocodile's hook and starts going numb. Vivi realizes the cannon is also a timed bomb. Pell arrives, remembers his duty as the guardian of Alabasta, and flies the bomb far away. It explodes in the sky and he sacrifices himself. The shockwave hits the city, but the civil war continues. Vivi screams from the bell tower, begging everyone to stop. Nami tells the Straw Hats they must end the fight no matter what. Underground, the tomb collapses. Luffy gets up, shocking Crocodile. Luffy finally defeats Crocodile, smashing him through the ruins and into the air. The Straw Hats and Vivi see Crocodile fall, but the war still goes on. Then rain begins, for the first time in 3 years, helping calm everyone. Vivi's cries are finally heard, and the fighting stops. People are still angry about past events, but Chaka orders the royal army to stand down. Igaram appears with Kappa, who proves Baroque works caused everything. The people lower their weapons. The Straw Hats meet King Cobra carrying the hurt but alive Luffy. Cobra explains Luffy carried both of them to safety and got an antidote for the poison, though he still needs more care. The Straw Hats prepare to return to the palace in secret. People gather around the defeated Crocodile as Tashigi and the Marines arrive. Tashigi says her men captured Baroque work ships carrying dance powder, proving Crocodile's crimes. She removes his warlord title and arrests him, even though he is unconscious. Koza struggles with the rebellion's actions and Crocodile's betrayal, but Cobra tells everyone to move forward and help Alabasta recover. On the coast, Hina accuses Smoker of using dance powder. Smoker denies it and says he did not want to ruin Cobra's plan to save his kingdom. He orders Hina to take the ship and Crocodile to Marine headquarters. Meanwhile, Tashigi tells her Marines to ignore the Straw Hats. That evening, the Straw Hats return to the palace to rest. Vivi watches the rain while Igaram enters and speaks about Pell, honoring his sacrifice. The next day at the port, Tashigi delivers Crocodile to Smoker and apologizes for letting Luffy escape. Smoker ignores it and tells her to become stronger if she doubts herself. Marine headquarters calls, giving credit to Smoker and Tashigi for capturing Crocodile. Hina says the world government wants to hide the Straw Hats' role, but Smoker angrily rejects the promotions. Dr. Honka is amazed by Chopper's medical skills, even after her 40 years of experience. Vivi takes care of Luffy while Karoo rests. Sanji and Usopp walk through the city, proud of the people rebuilding. And Zoro trains by balancing boulders. In the palace library, Cobra lets Nami take any books she wants. Chaka and the guards block Marines searching for Luffy and Zoro. Luffy wakes up hungry and sees his straw hat on the next bed, not knowing how badly injured he was. Terracotta, the royal chef, arrives to prepare a banquet for Luffy. She brings fruit, which he eats instantly. The Straw Hats enjoy a lively feast. Later, Cobra invites the Straw Hats to the baths. The women wash on one side while Nami and Vivi chat. The men try to peek, but Nami's happiness punch stops them. Nami says they should leave Alabasta that evening because Marines are probably looking for them. Cobra bows to the Straw Hats, thanking them as both a king and a father for saving Vivi. Nami and Vivi overhear him. That night, the Straw Hats prepare to leave. Luffy wants more food, but Zoro says they have to go. Chaka and Igaram receive new bounty posters. Luffy's is now 100 million berries, and Zoro's is 60 million berries. Igaram warns that Luffy cannot turn back after defeating a warlord. When he rushes to alert the Straw Hats, they have already left, leaving only Vivi behind. Vivi decides to go to the eastern harbor by 8 a.m., pondering whether to be a princess or a pirate. Earlier, Bon Kure contacts the Straw Hats via Den Den Mushi. He explains he moved the Going Merry to the upper Sandora River to protect it from the Marines and blocks all ports. The Straw Hats accept his help, wary but willing to trust him. Meanwhile, Marines Django and Fullbody attempt to intercept them. Usopp fires a cannon, destroying both their ships. Bon Kure helps the Straw Hats escape, distracting the Marines with his Okama disguise. Vivi begins her farewell speech about her travels with the Straw Hats. The people recognize her, and she meets the crew at the harbor. She announces she will stay behind, but asks that if they meet again, she be considered part of their family. To avoid incriminating her, the Straw Hats silently raise their left arms in a cross mark, which Vivi and Karoo mirror. Hina reports the escape to Smoker, who seems pleased. Cobra continues Vivi's speech to the kingdom, and Chaka mourns Pell's death. Back in Yuba, Toto laughs, knowing the Straw Hats' full role in saving Alabasta. And Pell stands at his own grave, alive and well. The Marines continue to attack the Going Merry. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji throw large pipes at the enemy ships, disabling them and making a quick escape. Smoker informs Tashigi of Luffy and Zoro's new bounties. The Straw Hats lament leaving Vivi behind, though Zoro jokes about it. The Alabasta Saga ends with Robin suddenly appearing, shocking the crew. She explains that Luffy forced her to keep living when she wanted to die, and now she joins the crew. She reveals her past as an archaeologist from age 8, her involvement in killing, and other jobs. Nami is convinced by Jules, Sanji by her being a woman, while Usopp, Luffy, and Chopper play with her powers. Only Zoro remains wary but is briefly disarmed by her cheerfulness. The journey continues when a giant ship suddenly falls from the sky. The log pose suddenly points straight up, and Robin explains it's being pulled by a powerful magnetic field from a sky island. Exploring the sunken ship, they find an old map of a place called Skypiea. Through books and a skull, they learn the ship is the St. Brice, which left the Kingdom of Breeze in South Blue 208 years ago. Curious, the crew decides to salvage it. While salvaging, they encounter pirates led by Masira, who claims that all sunken ships belong to him. As he raises the ship, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji attack his crew underwater. Masira comes down to stop them, but a giant sea turtle swallows the ship. Everyone escapes, but suddenly the sky darkens and 3 huge shadows appear. Scared, the pirates flee. Robin takes an eternal pose to the nearby island of Jaya to gather more information. Elsewhere, the pirate Roshio wins a poker game against Bellamy, who accuses him of cheating. Bellamy stabs Roshio's hand and shoots him. In Mocktown, Nami warns Luffy and Zoro that they must not fight, no matter what happens. They meet several strange pirates and end up at a hotel. There, Sarquis of the Bellamy Pirates insults them and gives them money for new clothes. They leave, and the Bellamy Pirates see Luffy's bounty. In a bar, they unknowingly meet Blackbeard. Bellamy then barges in looking for Luffy and wanting to test him. Bellamy punches Luffy and Nami asks about Sky Island, but Bellamy mocks them, claiming that chasing dreams like gold or the One Piece is meaningless compared to real power. Nami tells them to fight back, but Luffy tells Zoro they're not going to fight. Bellamy attacks Luffy and Zoro and others throw objects, but the crew doesn't fight back. They are laughed out of the bar and later meet Blackbeard again, who praises them for not wasting energy on the unworthy and openly supports Luffy's dreams. Back on the ship, Robin has found useful information. A man named Mont Blanc Cricket may know how to reach Sky Island. On the way, they encounter Shu, an orangutan pirate and Masira's brother, but escape. At Cricket's empty home, they find a book about Mont Blanc Noland, Liar Noland. Sanji explains it's a fairy tale from North Blue. Noland discovered a city of gold, told the king, but when they returned, the city was gone. The king executed Noland for lying, though he claimed the island sank. Cricket, a descendant of Noland, searches the ocean daily for proof, even injuring himself. Chopper treats him, and the crew meets Masira and Shuju again, who help Cricket as the Saruyama Alliance. Cricket explains the only way to reach Sky Island is via Knockup Stream, a giant ocean geyser. He sends the Straw Hats to find a Southbird, which always points south. Meanwhile, the Suriyama Alliance upgrades the Going Merry to survive Knockup Stream. Hearing Cricket found gold, Bellamy attacks him and his team, severely injuring them using his spring-like devil fruit powers. When the crew returns with the Southbird, Luffy decides to reclaim the gold. In Mocktown, new bounties arrive. Luffy has 100 million, Zoro 60 million, while Bellamy only 55 million. Bellamy dismisses them as fake. Luffy challenges Bellamy to return the gold. Bellamy attacks using his devil fruit, but Luffy doesn't fight back at first, letting Bellamy use his ultimate move, Spring Hopper. Finally, Luffy loses patience and knocks Bellamy out with a single punch. The terrified pirates realize Luffy's bounty is real and flee. Luffy takes the gold back to Cricket's house while the remaining Bellamy pirates are too scared to fight. Hearing about Luffy's bounty, Blackbeard and his crew plan to strike. Elsewhere, Ace boards Buggy's ship to help search for Luffy. Shanks tries to contact Whitebeard, but his letter is torn up. Whitebeard tells Rockstar to bring Shanks to him in person. Shanks orders his crew to prepare for the meeting. At Mary Joyce, the Marines and the 7 warlords gather to discuss replacing Crocodile. Fleet Admiral Sengoku is surprised to see Kuma and Doflamingo there. Mihawk also arrives, and just as the meeting begins, Lafitte from the Blackbeard Pirates shows up to recommend his captain as Crocodile's replacement. No one has heard of him yet, but Lafitte says they are working on it. Back at the Straw Hats, they return Cricket's gold and head for Knockup Stream, guided by the Suriyama Alliance and the Southbird. They are confronted by Blackbeard pirates showing their new bounties, but before a fight starts, the Straw Hats are swept into Knockup Stream, sent flying into the White Sea, while the Blackbeard pirates' raft is destroyed. Riding the stream, the Straw Hats reach Skypiea, a sea of clouds. They are attacked by a masked man on the clouds, but are saved by an old knight, Ganfall, riding a bird named Pierre. Ganfall explains the thin air made them weak, gives them a whistle for help, and the crew continues. They arrive at Heaven's Gate, the entrance to Skypiea, where a fee of 1 billion extols per person is demanded. The crew doesn't know the currency, and the gatekeeper, Amazon, warns them nothing. They enter Skypiea and reach Angel Island, meeting Canis and her father, Pagaya. Nami tests a device called a Waver and rides to a nearby forested island called Upper Yard, a forbidden sacred ground. Luffy wants to follow her, claiming it's for adventure. At Upper Yard, Nami sees Enel's priest chasing a treasure hunter, but Enel instantly destroys him with a massive lightning beam. Nami realizes the priests are tracking her and rushes back. On Angel Island's beach, the crew meets the White Berets, Skypiea's law enforcers, who declare the Straw Hats criminals. The fee for illegal entry is 10 billion extols per person, and minor actions like snoring raise their crime level. When Nami returns, she crashes the Waver into McKinley, the chief, and the White Berets attack but are easily defeated by Luffy. This escalates the crew to Class 2 criminals, to be handled by the priests. The crew prepares to leave with Nami, Chopper, Robin, and Zoro boarding the ship, while Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp gather supplies. Suddenly, the ship is grabbed by a super-fast shrimp, carrying them to Upper Yard. Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp head to Lovely Street to get a boat to rescue them. Canis lends them her dial-powered ship. Luffy asks why he has been trembling since leaving the house, and she reveals she did everything according to God Enel's will. Enel fires a massive beam at Canis, but Ganfall saves her, taking them out of Enel's range. Despite Enel's show of power, the 3 pirates continue to Upper Yard without trouble. Meanwhile, Nami, Zoro, Robin, and Chopper are on the ship above a sacrificial altar surrounded by shark-infested clouds. Zoro, Robin, and Nami decide to explore Upper Yard, swinging to land using vines while Chopper stays to guard the ship. They cautiously navigate the Milky Road, a winding path of cloud currents filled with hidden dangers and shifting obstacles, forcing the crew to constantly adapt and work together. They reach a hand-shaped statue with 4 paths: Ordeal of Swamp, Iron, String, and Balls. Luffy chooses the Ordeal of Balls, landing in a forest with floating cloud balls containing snakes, explosives, flowers, and other surprises. The priest Satori appears and attacks, using Mantra, a strange power that lets him sense and predict his enemies' moves. Luffy and the others struggle to anticipate his sudden strikes, realizing that Satori can almost read their intentions before they even act, making each dodge a desperate gamble. After a tough battle, the crew is nearly defeated, but they counter his attacks. Luffy grabs Satori and Sanji defeats him with a new move, Konkase. At Gonfal's house, he tells Konis and Pagaya about the ongoing war between the Shandia warriors and the Sky Peons over Upper Yard. Enel's takeover ended any hope of peace. Meanwhile, Priest Shura attacks Chopper at the altar. Chopper blows the whistle to call Ganfal, who fights Shura. When Shura uses the Ordeal of String, Ganfal and Chopper fall into the clouds but survive. Zoro's group realizes that Upper Yard is part of the lost city of gold from Noland's tale, sent into the sky by the Knock-Up Stream. Chopper wakes to find Ganfal and Pierre saved by giant southbirds. At the Shandia tribe, Isa reveals that Satori and Ganfal have been defeated. Wiper, Shandia leader, decides to reclaim Upper Yard and fights the remaining priests. When one of his strongest warriors, Kamakuri, is defeated, Wiper orders a retreat. Nami, Zoro, and Robin return to the altar and Luffy's group arrives. The crew camps in the forest to prepare. The Straw Hats piece together that Upper Yard is the lost city of gold. They plan to take treasure before returning to the Blue Sea. Nami combines maps of Jaya and Skypia to locate the city in the skull's right eye, according to Noland's log. Luffy starts a bonfire to celebrate, much to Nami's annoyance, and the crew dances with wolves in an Eve of Gold festival. Ganfal regains consciousness and explains to Robin that objects from the Blue Sea sent by Knock-Up Stream are highly valuable, especially Varth, soil that grows plants better than clouds. Upper Yard was once a holy land, leading to war with the Shandia. Later, Usopp sees a figure fixing the Going Merry through fog. By morning, all Shura's damage is gone. Nami plans for Luffy, Zoro, Chopper, and Robin to head to the Gold City, while she, Usopp, and Sanji take the Going Merry and Ganfal out of Upper Yard. Meanwhile, Wiper punishes Rocky for a mistake, but Kamakuri stops him. Wiper orders a final offensive to reclaim Upper Yard. Enel appears, telling the priests they may use their ordeals anywhere on the island. As the Shandia and Straw Hats enter Upper Yard, the survival game begins. Luffy's group heads for the Gold City but encounters a giant python, separating them with only Robin on the right path. On the Going Merry, Ganfal explains Upper Yard's history, the Shandia people, Enel's takeover 6 years ago, and demonstrates the use of dials as weapons, including the impact dial. The Shandia encounter Shura and are caught in his Ordeal of String, but Wiper avoids it and defeats Shura using a reject dial, an old version of the impact dial that multiplies power but hurts the user. As the warriors split up, Enel releases his 50 divine soldiers led by Yama, predicting that only 5 participants, including himself, will remain in the survival game. Zoro fights the Shandia warrior Bram and wins with his sons and Sakai. Luffy meets Wiper again, but their fight is interrupted when a giant python swallows Luffy. Chopper defeats Priest Gatatu, who falls into the Blue Sea due to his own Ordeal of Swamp. Robin defeats Yama at Ancient Ruins. On the Going Merry, Enel confronts Ganfal, shocking Sanji and Usopp unconscious with his devil fruit powers. Satori's brothers, Hotori and Couture, arrive for revenge but are defeated by Nami and Ganfal. Isa, the Shandia girl with Mantra, tries to reach Upper Yard in a dial boat but is picked up by Konis and Pagaya. Ganfal leaves the ship to investigate Enel's words, leaving Nami his impact dial. Konis and Pagaya create a shortcut to meet Nami with a new waiver. Meanwhile, Zoro accidentally attracts a southbird. Inside the python, Luffy finds gold in ruins but can't find a way out. Enel attacks Kamakuri, accidentally knocking out many warriors. 2 hours into the survival game, only 25 participants remain. Robin reaches the City of Gold but finds no gold. Chopper climbs a giant jack but is wounded by Priest Ohm. On the Going Merry, Nami chases Isa but is attacked by the python. They escape deeper into the jungle using the waiver. The Southbird carries Zoro through the air but drops him when the python attacks. Wiper reaches Ganfal, who explains God's shrine is destroyed. Zoro lands and fights Priest Ohm, and defeating him. Nami, Isa, and some soldiers arrive. Ganfal and Pierre save them but are eaten by the python. The group reunites with Luffy. In the Gold City ruins, Robin meets Enel, who has taken all the gold but is interested in the Golden Bell. At the Going Merry, Enel attacks, leaving Caunus to warn Angel Island. Clouds are destroyed, sending Zoro, Wiper, and the Python falling. Ganfall and Nami escape, leaving Luffy, Isa, and Pierre behind. With 3 minutes left, 6 survivors remain. They unanimously choose Enel to leave. Enel explains that humans living in the sky are unnatural, and that he plans to move them to a realm of infinite size, his true natural domain. Ganfall attacks but is defeated, leaving 5 survivors: Luffy, Wiper, Zoro, Robin, and Nami. Enel targets Robin for the Golden Bell. Zoro fights back, and Wiper uses Sea Stone in his reject dial to stop Enel temporarily. But Enel revives himself. He defeats everyone, leaving only Nami, who follows him. Enel escapes on the Ark Maxim, a flying ship powered by the city's gold. Meanwhile, Luffy escapes from the Python and finds Enel's victims. Robin, barely conscious, explains the situation, and Isa uses her mantra to guide Luffy to him. At Angel Beach, Caunus tries to convince everyone to leave the island, but is called a heretic. She shouts that Enel is not God, and everyone runs in fear. When nothing happens to her, they realize she is right. The White Berets restore order, and Caunus hurries back to Upper Yard to lead the Straw Hats out. Luffy reaches Enel and fights him. Enel is shocked that his lightning has no effect on Luffy, and that Luffy can bypass his Logia powers to hurt him. Enel changes tactics, heating his staff, teleporting, and using mantra to predict Luffy's moves. He uses the Arc Maxim to start Death Paya, forming massive thunderclouds to amplify his power and destroy the islands. Luffy gains the upper hand until Enel attaches a large gold ball to his arm, knocking him back onto Upper Yard. Nami prepares to fight, using Climattack attacks to deflect Enel's weaker bolts. Sanji and Usopp wake up, and Sanji declares he will save Nami. He forces Usopp to help her onto the ship. Usopp distracts Enel, while Nami uses the waiver to jump to the giant jack area, landing a hit. Enel tries to attack them, but Sanji blocks it, allowing their escape. Sanji got knocked out Ajin. The ship begins to explode as Sanji sabotaged its machines, letting the Arc Maxim fly. As Enel fixes the ship, Usopp climbs and jumps off with Sanji. Enel keeps the ship flying with emergency dials and rains, lightning down on the land. In the ruins of Shandor, Luffy recovers and, with Isa and Pierre, heads toward the giant jack. Leaving Isa and Pierre with Robin, who brings the others to the surface, Luffy climbs the giant jack with the gold ball still on his arm. Meanwhile, Wiper, Zoro, and Ganfall wake up, and Nami tells everyone to go to the Going Merry. She uses her waiver to try to reach Luffy and get him to leave as well. Wiper remembers a story from his childhood. 400 years ago, Admiral Mont Blanc Noland caught a huge fish to feed his starving crew and survived a storm, hearing a mysterious bell. On the island, a dying priest claimed the Shandia were cursed and a girl must be offered on the sacrificial altar. Moose volunteered, while her mother wept. Young Cedo cursed his fate as Calgara passed by. Noland's crew reached the shore, found a south bird whose bell-like sound matched what Noland had heard, signaling the island was inhabited. They found Sato, diagnosed him with tree fever, and gathered Konine to heal him and the village. At the sacrificial altar, Moose was tied up as a priest prayed. A giant snake, Kashigami, approached, but Noland jumped in, climbed the altar, and killed it, comforting Moose. Villagers were furious and demanded punishment. Calgara attacked Noland, who introduced himself as a North Sea explorer and defended progress. Calgara speared Noland, holding his crew hostage, insisting all intruders be killed. Noland argued sacrifices were wrong and promised to lift the curse if villagers swore never to offer humans again. The Shandia chief gave him 1 day to prove it. His crew and Moose worried in cages, while Sato recovered, pondering Noland's words about progress. In the forest, Noland celebrated finding a Kona tree. An earthquake frightened villagers, and Calgara mocked Noland for being trapped. Villagers, angry over the quake and Kashigami's death, tried to execute Noland's crew, but Sato stopped them. At sunset, Moose and the crew were led to the altar. Noland confronted Calgara about human sacrifices. A python appeared. Noland revealed he had a cure for tree fever, shaming Calgara for risking the village. The python attacked Noland but was killed by Calgara, who asked if the village could be saved. Noland's crew gave the cure, delighting the villagers. Calgara reunited with Moose and Noland recovered. Later, they met Kashigami's grandson, a smaller python. Noland and Calgara bonded, and the crew admired their cooperation. Calgara led them to Shandora. In the Golden City, villagers rang the bell. The crew could take treasure, but Calgara explained the real treasures were a poneglyph and the golden bell honoring ancestors. Noland admired the bell he heard during the storm. The crew shared knowledge and seeds, but villagers still distrusted them, calling them killers of gods. On the beach, the bell was silent. Noland planned more work and went to confront Calgara, who angrily attacked him. The crew sat by a campfire, upset the villagers turned against them. Moose explained the crew cut sacred trees, angering villagers despite helping them. The next day, Noland learned of the villagers' anger and decided to leave the treasure. Moose pleaded with Calgara to forgive Noland, explaining their actions were to save the village. Villagers were stunned. Calgara ran to the beach, seeking forgiveness. As Noland's crew left, the golden bell rang again. Villagers and Cedo cried, and Calgara and Noland wept, promising to meet again. Back in Livneal, Noland told the king his story. 5 years later, the king sent an army to Shandora. Meanwhile, Calgara and a grown Cedo kept the bell ritual. The island rose from the knock-up stream. Noland, the king, and the army arrived to find destruction. Execution loomed, but his crew defended him. The Shandia village launched skyward, the golden bell rang, and the sky people declared it holy. Calgara fought to protect the village, always hoping to reunite with Noland. In the present, Luffy climbs the giant jack and meets Nami. She tells him to leave, but he says he must ring the bell so Cricket and everyone will know the city of gold is in the sky. Nell reaches the top and uses his ultimate technique, Raygo, destroying Angel Island and making a huge hole in the clouds. At the Golden Bell, he creates an even bigger Raygo to destroy all of Skypiea. Nami sees everyone is still near the giant jack, so she sends instructions to cut it down. Despite Zoro's efforts, it stays standing. Hearing why Luffy wants to ring the bell, Wiper uses his reject dial to fell the plant. Nami and Luffy blast it with full power, flying toward Enel. Luffy pushes Nami onto a cloud and swings into the Raygo. As the Skypians and Shandia pray for the true god, using the golden ball, Luffy draws all the electricity from Raygo into himself and completely destroys it. Even as Enel uses all his power, Luffy crashes Enel into the bell, ringing it across the islands. The resonant sound echoes through Skypiea, signaling hope and the end of the long-standing war between the Skypians and the Shandia, and moving even the most hardened warriors to tears. Anjaya, Cricket, and the Suriyama Alliance hear it. Cricket explains the giants at the start were actually shadows cast by people in the sky, confirmed by a giant shadow of Luffy in a victorious pose. Cricket cries, relieved the city existed and that Luffy is safe. For the Skypians, the ringing of the golden bell signals the end of the long war between the Shandia and the Skypians. Enel, his arc, and the bell fall into the sea clouds. Upper Yard clears and everyone gathers. The Shandia warriors recover, Pagaya is alive, and those forced to build Arc Maxime are reunited with their families. Wiper wakes and wants to fight the Sky people for Upper Yard, but the chief explains peace is the priority. Wiper sees everyone celebrating. Enel recovers and flies away toward the fairy Verth, which is actually the moon, leaving the Skypians to keep their land. The bell is found in the fallen giant jack, and the Shandia and Skypians work together to lift it, showing their unity. On the bell's base is a poneglyph. Robin deciphers the poneglyph, learning information about the ancient weapon Poseidon. The Shandia no longer need to protect it or fight. Robin also finds another message from Gold D. Roger, revealing the Rio poneglyph is on Laugh-Tale. The Shandia thank the Straw Hats by offering one of the Belfry's pillars, which Robin accepts. Usopp trades rubber bands, claiming they match the material that defeated Enel. The Sky Island Saga ends with the Straw Hats stealing bags of gold from the sleeping snake. Seeing Robin with the pillar, the Straw Hats think they've been caught, so they run. With Caunus and Pagaya leading, they reach Cloud End to return to the Blue Sea. Ganfall is restored as the god of Skypiea, and the Straw Hats safely descend back to the Blue Sea with the help of an octopus balloon. The story continues with the Straw Hats returning safely to the Blue Sea as the octopus balloon deflates, feeling as if their Skypiea adventure was a dream. A massive tidal wave and the sea monkeys appear, forcing them to move the Going Merry. While checking their treasures, they learn most dials work in the Blue Sea except the Cloud Dial, and soon realize the Merry is heavily damaged. Usopp admits he protected the ship but cannot repair it, so Luffy decides their next crewmate must be a shipwright, then a musician. The crew escapes from the sea monkeys and the tidal wave. Usopp spots a ship and thinks it is an enemy, but as they approach, Luffy warns them about the wave. The other crew is in chaos, lacking a navigator, captain, flag, and sails. Robin mentioned seeing an island earlier, and the crew heads toward Long Ring Long Land. Meanwhile, in Mocktown, Bellamy and Sarquis fight. Their true leader Doflamingo has returned, furious that his symbol was mocked. Bellamy begs for forgiveness, but Doflamingo forces Sarquis to attack. As Bellamy screams, Doflamingo declares a new age where only the strong pirates survive. At Long Ring Longland, the Straw Hats are shocked by the island's long-legged animals. They find a tall white horse and an old man named Tonjit, who was knocked down by Luffy after getting stuck on a 10-year stilt experiment. Tonjit explains the island's strange animals and his separation from his tribe. Inside his home, Tonjit realizes his village and cattle are gone, gets sick from spoiled milk turned cheese, and explains that reuniting with his tribe would take 20 years on foot, but only 5 with his horse, Shelly. Reunited, they prepare to cross the plains when the tide lowers. Suddenly, Shelly is shot, and the attackers reveal themselves as Foxy, Portia, and Hamburg of the Foxy Pirates. Foxy challenges Luffy to a Davy-back fight, and Luffy immediately accepts, despite Usopp's panic over losing crewmates. The challenge is locked in. As Chopper treats Shelly, Robin explains the Davy-back fight is a pirate game where crews steal members or flags over 3 rounds. The Straw Hats realize a broken crew they saw earlier lost this game. Despite Nami's protests, the guns fire, the match begins, and Luffy declares he will defeat Foxy. The ceremony begins, the rules are explained, and Foxy announces the start of the game by offering a coin to Davy Jones. Robin explains Davy Jones is a cursed pirate who steals everything that sinks to the seafloor. The crew split for the 3 rounds, starting with the donut race. As the race begins, the Foxy Pirates interfere from the audience, blasting the Straw Hats' boat into the air, but they narrowly escape a falling boulder. Sanji fights back against the cheaters. Capote uses Fishman Karate, but Robin restrains him and throws him into Manda. The Straw Hats use the impact dial to gain speed and take the lead, while Porsche plans to sink them near the Long Coral area, Long Whirlpool, and Long Cape, as Foxy prepares more tricks from shore. Foxy orders Hamburg ahead, while Luffy is distracted by food, Sanji by Foxy's women, Chopper by sweets, and Zoro by rum. Near the Long Coral area, Nami slows the Taru Tiger while the Cuddy Wagon rushes forward, trapping Manda in the currents. Using smoke and her knowledge of the maze-like whirlpools, Nami guides the crew safely through and has Usopp launch the ship over the whirlpool with the impact dial. The Cuddy Wagon recovers by using Capote inside Manda's mouth to smash through the corals. At a false sign, Nami destroys it and goes straight, tricking Foxy again. They reach the Long Ripple, where Foxy pretends to be helpless, but Nami ignores him. Usopp spots a fake finish line, which Nami destroys, realizing the real goal is elsewhere. Unable to use the impact dial again, the Straw Hats press on as the Cuddy Wagon stops at the fake finish. Nami reminds everyone that losing means losing a crewmate and reveals the true finish at the Long Bamboo shore. Portia orders an attack, but falling bamboo injures Capote. And although Portia damages the Taru Tiger with her weapons, the Straw Hats push forward. As Hamburg and Manda close in, Foxy fires the Noro Noro beam, slowing their ship at the last moment. The donut race ends with the Foxy Pirates' victory, and Foxy reveals his devil fruit, the Noro Noro no Mi, which slows anything it hits. He ends the round and chooses Chopper as his prize, mocking him as a pet and forcing him to wear a mask. The Straw Hats are devastated, but Zoro harshly tells Chopper that this was their choice as pirates. Round 2 begins with the undefeated Groggy Monsters. Zoro and Sanji fight for the Straw Hats, but are mocked, and Sanji is forced to be the ball. Weapons are banned, so Zoro drops his swords. Despite constant arguing, the match starts. Pickles charges, Big Pan's slippery body throws Sanji off balance, and Hamburg and Pickles control him. Zoro and Sanji counter and throw Hamburg and Pickles out, then argue again. The referee ignores Big Pan's hidden weapons. He traps them. Pickles and Hamburg return armed, and Big Pan throws them into the air. Pickles spins Hamburg, who slams Zoro with elbow guards. Zoro is badly injured, and Ito Mimizu declares him dead. The assault continues. Pickles is fired into Sanji, Hamburg hits him mid-air, and Big Pan smashes him down. The Foxy Pirates celebrate, believing the match is over. Zoro and Sanji, still conscious, agree to cooperate for 10 seconds. As Itomamizu prepares to end the match, they stand up again, earning cheers from Luffy and Usopp. Foxy orders the Monster Burger. The monsters reveal illegal weapons, which the referee ignores despite Nami's protests. Luffy tries to interfere but is stopped. Sanji mocks them and kicks Hamburg into Big Pun, crushing him. Pickles attacks, but Zoro stops him and throws him into Big Pun. Sanji knocks Big Pan upright again, and Pickles crashes into the referee, injuring him. Nami has stolen all the red cards, and Robin teases her. Zoro jumps onto Sanji's leg, uses his kick to launch himself, grabs Big Pan by the mouth, and slams him through the goal. The Straw Hats win round 2. The referee blows the whistle, and Luffy earns the right to choose someone from Foxy's crew. Nami suggests choosing Foxy to win instantly and get Chopper back, angering the Foxy Pirates until she shuts them up. Robin warns Luffy that choosing Foxy is easy, but no one wants him on the ship. Luffy chooses Chopper instead, bringing him back. Foxy despairs, but his crew urges him to win round 3. He warns the Straw Hats that losing means losing forever. Luffy confidently says he won't. A cannon selects Foxy's ship as the arena for the final battle. A 50-meter area around the ship where all weapons are allowed, but only the fighters may enter, while fireworks and smoke reveal giant bounty posters of Luffy and Foxy. Itamamisu announces the final battle between the captains. Luffy appears with an afro and flaming skull tattoo. Usopp coaches him as the crowd cheers. Nami warns about the Noro Noro beam. At the bell, Luffy attacks with Gomu Gomu no pistol, but Foxy slows him with the beam. The more Luffy struggles, the slower he moves. Foxy fires again. Luffy's movements and speech are delayed. Using Foxy Rush, the delayed damage sends Luffy flying, but he grabs the ship. He fights carefully, chasing Foxy across the ship while dodging arrows and cannonballs. Foxy uses decoys, face bombs, trap rooms, disguises, and a mirror machine to slow and trick Luffy, who survives, hits Foxy, destroys the mirror, and endures powerful attacks. Foxy traps Luffy with the Noro Noro beam sword, repeatedly attacking, but Luffy rises each time for his friends. Riding a slowed cannonball, Foxy launches a final attack. Luffy breaks free and counters with Gomu Gomu no Gatling. Foxy fires another beam, but a mirror piece in Luffy's afro reflects it, freezing Foxy. Luffy finishes with Gomu Gomu no Flail, winning. The Foxy pirates are stunned. Itamamisu declares Luffy the winner. The Straw Hats celebrate while Foxy's crew saves him. Usopp pokes Luffy until Chopper scolds him. Sanji and Nami joke about Luffy's afro. Luffy asks if he won, then relaxes. Foxy offers a handshake, tries to attack but fails. He gives up and ends the fight. Itamamizu allows Luffy to choose a member, but he takes only the Foxy Pirates flag, shocking everyone, making Nami relieved. Luffy promises to redraw their Jolly Roger, earning praise despite the flag's poor look. The Foxy Pirates leave aboard the Sexy Foxy, vowing revenge. Afterward, the Straw Hats check on Tanjit and Shelly. Luffy celebrates their victory, Chopper treats Shelly, and Nami offers a ride to reunite them with their tribe. Usopp explains the islands are connected, so the log pose cannot guide them separately. A man suddenly wakes up and asks who they are. The Straw Hats are confused, but Robin collapses in fear. They get ready to fight. The man reveals himself as Admiral Aokiji and notes how much Robin has grown. When Luffy asks if Robin knows him, Aokiji says they met before and explains he is not on duty, just taking a walk. Robin explains that Aokiji is a Marine Admiral, one of the strongest officers. Usopp panics. Aokiji ignores him, flirts with Nami, and angers Sanji. He talks about his lazy justice and says he only came to confirm Robin's location after Alabasta so he could report it. He gives up counting their bounties because he finds it too troublesome. Luffy tries to attack to protect Robin, but Usopp stops him. Aokiji repeats that he does not plan to fight and prepares to leave. Before going, he tells Tanjit to get ready, revealing he overheard his plan. Luffy protests at first, then realizes Aokiji wants to help. Aokiji explains how to cross during low tide, and despite Shelly's injury, Robin confirms Aokiji can assist. At the shore, Aokiji touches the sea. A Sea King appears, but Aokiji uses Ice Age, freezing the entire ocean instantly. Robin explains he has a Logia-type devil fruit. Aokiji says the ice will last about a week, and Tanjit thanks him happily. Aokiji suddenly becomes serious and mentions Luffy's grandfather, unsettling him. He says the world government does not yet see the Straw Hats as a major threat, but he does. He warns that their growth, willpower, and Robin's presence make them dangerous. He questions Robin, bringing up her past betrayals and asking if the Straw Hats are only tools to her. Angry, Robin attacks Aokiji and shatters his body, but he reforms from ice. He creates an ice sword and attacks. Zoro blocks it, Sanji kicks him, and Luffy strikes, but Aokiji instantly freezes them at the same time. Nami realizes he has defeated all three at once. Chopper warns that the frozen injuries must be treated immediately. Aokiji tells Robin she has good friends, but says she has not changed. Robin disagrees, but Aokiji suddenly hugs her and freezes her completely. He tells Luffy that Robin can survive if thawed carefully, warning that her body is extremely fragile. Aokiji pretends to demonstrate this by trying to smash her. Luffy saves Robin at the last moment, and Usopp moves her away, taking the hit himself. Luffy orders them to take Robin back to the ship to thaw her. Aokiji tells them not to bother. Nami attacks him in anger but is easily defeated. Zoro and Sanji step in, but Luffy stops them and asks to fight Aokiji alone. Aokiji agrees, warning it will be a fight to the death. On the ship, Robin begins to recover. Zoro, Sanji, and Nami return without Luffy and explain that he stayed behind. Meanwhile, Luffy fights Aokiji and lands strong attacks, but Aokiji eventually freezes him completely and ends the fight. He says Luffy will one day understand the danger of traveling with Robin, then leaves, sparing him because of past events involving Crocodile. Zoro and Sanji find Luffy still alive and bring him back. Chopper later announces that both Luffy and Robin are stable but need rest. The crew stays in place for the day, and Robin later wakes up safely. Soon after, they spot a strange frog and chase it, changing course. Suddenly, they approach a lighthouse and railroad signals as a train speeds toward them, forcing Nami to panic and order full reverse. The crew followed a frog underwater and were almost hit by a train on the water, which sent the frog flying. Amazed, they reached a nearby station and met the station master Kokoro, her granddaughter Chimney, and a pet rabbit that acted like a cat. Kokoro explained that the frog, Yokozuna, was fine and liked testing itself against the train, a sea train called Puffing Tom, connecting nearby islands. She told them their log pose would lead to Water 7, a city of shipwrights, and to ask a man named Iceberg for help. Arriving at Water 7, the crew sailed through the canals, guided by locals, to dock the ship. Luffy, Nami, and Usopp went to exchange Skypia gold for 300 million and find a shipwright using creatures called Yagaras to navigate, while Robin and Chopper explored. Robin countered CP9, shocking her, and she disappeared before Chopper returned. And Sanji went alone, leaving Zoro on the ship. Bounty hunters came for the Going Merry but underestimated Zoro and were defeated. Luffy's group exchanged the gold and met Kaku, a foreman, who inspected their ship with incredible speed. Iceberg, mayor of Water 7 and president of Galley Law Company, and his secretary Khalifa soon appeared and agreed to repair the ship. But they discovered all the money was stolen. Polly, another foreman, accidentally helped recover it, but Lucci stopped him. Iceberg explained the thieves were the Frankie family, led by a cyborg named Frankie. Sanji saw Robin with the masked man but lost her. Usopp was attacked by the Frankie family and lost 200 million. Government officials visit Iceberg while Nami and Luffy hide. A few minutes later, they leave, and a lead official hints that Iceberg has something important. Kaku revealed the Going Merry was beyond repair. Luffy ran into the city while Nami returned to the ship to explain the situation. Khalifa then talks to Iceberg about this it, confirming he possesses it. A wanted poster of young Nico Robin is shown on Iceberg's office wall. Meanwhile, the Frankie family prepared the stolen money for Frankie. Usopp burst in to demand it back, but was quickly overwhelmed. The Straw Hats discover an unconscious Usopp outside the Frankie house. Seeing him in such a state ignites their anger and they storm inside. There they find the Frankie family, high on money and celebrating wildly. When one member is punched, the others panic, but their confidence quickly returns, only to vanish again when Luffy smashes through steel armor. The Straw Hats swiftly defeat the Frankie family and destroy their base, though Frankie escapes with most of the stolen money. Facing the damage to the Going Merry, Luffy decides it's time to abandon the ship and acquire a new one. Usopp is enraged, prompting Luffy to explain that the Merry cannot be repaired after the damage she has sustained. Refusing to accept this, Usopp believes Luffy has abandoned the Merry. Usopp leaves the crew and challenges Luffy to a duel for the ship that night. Despite attempts to reason, the duel goes ahead. The fight is intense, with Usopp using tricks and clever attacks to slow Luffy and cause real damage, forcing Luffy to struggle and adapt. Despite Usopp's skill and strategy, Luffy ultimately overpowers him and wins the duel. Luffy lets Usopp keep the Going Merry while the rest of the crew leaves the ship. The next morning, Water 7 panicked over Iceberg being attacked. Luffy and Nami went to see the mayor, while others searched for Robin. Frankie, returning, found the Straw Hats were behind the damage and sent word to his gang. Iceberg woke, identifying his attackers, a masked man and Robin. The city also faced the annual high tide, Aqua Laguna. At Dock 1, Frankie taunts Luffy about attacking his gang and destroying his house. Nami wants the money back, but Frankie says he already spent it. Luffy, unfazed, seeks revenge. Frankie unleashes a massive fire attack, leaps into the water, and crashes into the boat, sending Luffy and Nami flying. Using his strong right, he flings Luffy across the water and into a wall. Nami realizes Frankie hasn't eaten a devil fruit. He's a cyborg with robotic parts. Galley Law Company foreman interfered but soon attacked Luffy, blaming the Straw Hats for the attempt on Iceberg. Frankie unleashed his ultimate attack, coup de vent, destroying the dock. Luffy and Nami escape to verify Robin's involvement. Luffy decides to check if Iceberg was telling the truth about Robin attacking him. He breaks into Iceberg's building, dodging the shipwrights as he searches for the mayor. When they meet, Iceberg confirms that he saw Robin and pulls a gun, demanding to see her. Luffy says he does not know where she is, and Iceberg fires, drawing attention. Luffy escapes before the workers arrive. Elsewhere, Sanji and Chopper find Robin. She says the darkness inside her will endanger the crew and declares that she is leaving. Sanji tells Chopper to return and inform the others, while he stays behind. Zoro, Nami, and Chopper reunite and suspect the masked man is forcing Robin's actions, though Zoro warns against false hope. Expecting another attack that night, they decide to confront her. Meanwhile, Frankie kidnaps Usopp and steals the Going Merry to draw Luffy out. At Galila headquarters, Iceberg calls Polly in. Afterward, Polly leaves his post and opens a hidden safe. Masked men, including Robin, stormed the building. Nami, Chopper, and Zoro broke in, but Luffy was stuck between two buildings. The man with Robin, wearing a bear mask, entered Iceberg's room and shot him, leaving Robin to finish the job. Iceberg revealed the attackers were CP9, targeting the blueprints of the ancient weapon, Pluton, which Iceberg inherited. Meanwhile, Polly takes the blueprints from Iceberg's safe, but encounters two men wearing bowls and skull masks. Polly attacks them but is quickly defeated. It turns out the blueprints were fake. Using Den Den Mushi, the other CP9 agents gather at Iceberg's room. Luffy breaks in but is caught off guard by CP9's powers, including air blades from their legs. Luffy and Polly are pinned, but Luffy escapes and frees Polly. The four CP9 agents reveal themselves: Lucci, Kaku, Secretary Khalifa, and bar owner Blueno. Iceberg refuses to cooperate with CP9. Lucci checks Iceberg's pulse and confirms his theory. Iceberg inherited the Pluton blueprints from shipwright Tom. CP9 believed Tom's other apprentice, Cutty Flam, died under a sea train, but he actually lives as Frankie in Water 7. Iceberg's pulse quickens, proving Lucci right. CP9 prepares to chase Frankie when Luffy, Polly, Zoro, Chopper, and Nami break in. Polly attacks Lucci but is beaten. CP9 demonstrates Rokushiki, 6 martial arts techniques that make them superhuman. Robin leaves, saying she has a wish she cannot achieve with them. CP9 sets a firebomb. Lucci shows his devil fruit power, the Neko Niko no Mi model. Luffy and Zoro attack, but Lucci throws them across the island. The building catches fire with Iceberg and Polly unconscious, Nami thrown outside, and Chopper buried under rubble. CP9 leaves, encountering Frankie family members who taunt them about Usopp and the ship being captive. Lucci beats them for information and heads for Frankie's hideout. At Frankie's hideout, Usopp fixes the ship while Frankie and his assistants cry. Usopp says he plans to return to Syrup Village after a bit more adventure, but Frankie warns the ship is too damaged. To prove it, Frankie throws Usopp in the water under the ship. Even so, Usopp keeps repairing it, revealing he saw a mysterious figure in Skypiea, repairing the ship after Priest Shura damaged it, which he thinks was the Going Merry's soul. Frankie confirms the Kleboterman, a ship spirit, exists and saves crews if the ship loves them. They discuss whether to leave a friend behind, but before finishing, 4 CP9 agents break in and knock out the assistants. Frankie recognizes them as Galley Law Company, but Lucci reveals they are government agents who know he is Cutty Flam and that they killed Iceberg. Frankie is knocked into a workshop, the old place where Tom's workers built ships. CP9 searches for the Pluton blueprints, but Frankie tells them to leave. A quick flashback shows young Frankie building ships and being attacked by a Sea King, while young Iceberg scolds him for always creating weapons. Tom, the skilled pufferfish shipwright, constructs ships flawlessly as Kokoro prepares meals. The island's shipbuilders argue over customers, and with the rising water, the city teeters on the edge of sinking. Tom devises a solution. After Gold D. Rogers' execution, a judiciary ship arrives to arrest Tom, but he declares he will build a sea train to connect the islands. The judge grants him 10 years to complete it. A decade later, Puffing Tom launches successfully. CP5 agents led by Spandam appear but are repelled by Frankie's cannons. Spandam confronts Tom, demanding the Pluton blueprints, yet Tom refuses. Later, Tom entrusts the blueprints to Iceberg and Frankie. The next day, a judiciary ship returns for Tom's retrial, and ships built by Frankie attack Water 7. The blame falls on Tom, and Frankie tries to intervene. Spandam claims he saved everyone, and Frankie protests, prompting Tom to punch him to make a point. A ship must be loved by its creator. Tom strikes at Spandam but is tranquilized. He requests that the sea train incident be erased, so he will face execution only for building the Oro Jackson, sparing Frankie and Iceberg. Frankie retaliates with a tranquilizer gun and escapes, while Tom boards the sea train to Eni's lobby, and Frankie fires at it from along the track. But the train does not stop. In present, Frankie and Usopp are restrained by CP9. Spandam, wounded, threatens Frankie, and CP9 arrests Usopp for claiming to be a pirate. Kaku releases the Going Merry into Aqua Laguna's storm, where it breaks apart. At Galley headquarters, Iceberg and Polly, saved by Chopper and Nami, regain consciousness. Iceberg tells the other shipwrights to leave and reveals Robin warned him CP9 could call a fleet to destroy the island, using a buster call if she did not obey. Robin's goal is to keep the Straw Hats safe. Nami wakes Chopper. Polly tells the others the pirates were not the attackers. Nami works to stop the sea train with galley workers, while Chopper searches for Luffy and Zoro. At Blue Station, CP9 boards the sea train with prisoners, observed by Sanji. The storm forces the train to depart early. Sanji sneaks on board, leaving a note for the crew. Nami now looks for a ship to chase them, but Polly warns it's too dangerous during Aqua Laguna. Kokoro watches the sea, noticing the unusually far retreat of the water. Chimney spots something in the alleys. Luffy stuck between two buildings. Chopper sees Zoro stuck in a chimney. Both Nami and Chopper leap across buildings to rescue Luffy and Zoro, with Chopper handing Zoro his sword. Nami yells to Luffy that Robin gave up her life so they could escape the government. Luffy pushes apart the buildings he was stuck between, and Zoro slices the chimney he was trapped in, just as the first wave of Aqua Laguna crashes toward them. They barely reach higher ground, but are engulfed by another wave. Polly pulls them up, and they climb to even higher ground, learning the full situation. On Puffing Tom, Sanji wonders how to get inside. A government agent appears, comments on the storm, and notices Sanji. Sanji attacks immediately, kicking the agent into the train. Other agents draw their guns and confront him. Sanji gets inside, but the agents threaten to shoot. One tries to contact Lucci, but a large man steps in, saying CP9 should not be bothered by such a small issue. He introduces himself as Jerry, an undefeated boxing champion from the South Blue. Sanji is unimpressed. Jerry attacks with a rapid punch barrage, but misses and hits the other agents instead. He mocks Sanji and changes his stance. Sanji angrily says Jerry only made his range shorter. Jerry claims it was planned and tries a drill kick, but misses. Sanji defeats him instantly with Brochette, shocking the agents. Back at Water 7, Luffy decides to chase Robin by ship, but Polly warns no ship can survive Aqua Laguna. Kokoro says only a sea train could do it, and leads them to the old prototype, Rocket Man, with Iceberg finishing maintenance. Luffy and Zoro recover by eating meat and sake provided by Nami and conductors. Before leaving, the Frankie family appears, tearfully asking to join to rescue Frankie. Luffy agrees. The train launches into Aqua Laguna with the Frankie's cart attached, boosting speed. Polly reveals the assassins' identities and forms an alliance with the Straw Hats, Galley Company, and Frankie family. Meanwhile, Iceberg remembers a brief flashback where he is told that Cutty Flam wants to see him and is clearly shocked. That night, he secretly meets Frankie and learns that Frankie rebuilt his body after it was destroyed by the sea train. They argue about the past and Tom's death, with Iceberg admitting that he still hasn't forgiven Frankie. In the end, Iceberg gives Frankie the Pluton blueprints, tells him to abandon the name Cutty Flam, and leave Water 7 to protect them. Though worried, Frankie refuses to leave, and Iceberg tearfully admits that he is glad Frankie is alive. In present on Puffing Tom, Sanji frees Usopp and Frankie from the next car after convincing Frankie is trustworthy. They climb toward Captain T-Bone's station and use a Den Mushi to contact Nami. Back on Rocketman, a huge wave approaches. Luffy and Zoro perform their ultimate combo, Gomu Gomu no Sanbyaku Pound Cannon, blasting a tunnel and saving the train. On Puffing Tom, Frankie wants to help rescue Robin, but Usopp refuses, saying he's no longer a part of the crew. Meanwhile, T-Bone and the Marines search for the escaped criminals. A Marine spots Sanji and Frankie outside the train, but he is suddenly shot into the water. The shooter reveals himself as Soga King, claiming Usopp told him everything and is willing to help. Sanji and Frankie see through his disguise but remain silent. On the Rocketman, Zoro notices Nami's new weapon. She explains it's the perfect climate tact, modified by Usopp before he left. Nami and Luffy feel disappointed by Usopp's work, but Zoro angrily tells them not to lose spirit. Back at Puffing Tom, in Train Car 6, T-Bone and the Marines search for Sanji, Frankie, and Soga King. The trio briefly taunts them at the door, then escapes as Soga King delays them. T-Bone cuts the door open, but they have already fled to the roof. He realizes their plan, yet it's too late. The cars are locked and detached. Wanze blocks the way and challenges the group. Frankie's shots and Sanji's kicks fail as Wanze dodges easily. Sanji sends Frankie and Soga King ahead and stays behind to fight. Wanze attacks using noodle techniques and even creates a ramen battlesuit, angering Sanji by using food to fight. After a fierce exchange, Sanji switches tactics, uses kitchen knives, and overwhelms Wanze. On the roof of the Puffing Tom, Frankie faces Nero, who uses Rokushiki techniques like Soru, Geppo, and Rankyaku. Their fight is fast and brutal, with neither fully understanding the other's abilities. Frankie endures Nero's attacks and counters with his own weapons. Meanwhile, Soga King reaches Robin's car and reveals he came to save her, telling her that the Straw Hats are coming. He asks her to escape with him, but Robin refuses, believing she cannot be saved. Even so, Soga King declares that the crew will chase her anywhere, even to hell. When a government agent enters, Soga King hides and Robin pretends everything is normal. On the Rocketman, Luffy spots the abandoned train cars. On the abandoned train cars, Marines and government agents notice the approaching train. Luffy jumps onto it with Gomu Gomu no rocket. Bullets bounce off his rubber body. He learns Robin and the others aren't there and tells Zoro to cut up the train car. Zoro slices it, leaving the Marines stranded. Ahead, they see a split Sea King, surprising everyone. On the tracks, T-Bone rushes after Puffing Tom to catch up. Zanbai recognizes him as the Navy's ship slasher, capable of cutting any ship. He challenges Zoro, who blocks T-Bone's Chokaku Hicho, Bone Odori attack, and defeats him. T-Bone complements Zoro's strength while floating in the water. On Puffing Tom, Sogeking hides inside Robin's coat while Corgi sniffs around, suspicious of pirates. In Train Car 4, Sanji defeats Wanzi after a fierce battle, punishing him for disrespecting food and friends. On the roof, Frankie fights Nero, using his strength, Centaur mode, and clever tactics to dodge attacks and counter. Sogeking creates a smokescreen, grabs Robin, and separates the train cars. Frankie refuses to run, and Sanji notes the smokescreen surprised CP9. Khalifa's Whip and Blueno pull their car in. Sanji tells Sogeking to protect Robin and attacks Blueno, stunning him with Konkasei. Robin knocks out Sogeking, confusing Sanji. Frankie holds off CP9, telling Sanji and Sogeking to return to Luffy while he stays. Blueno appears behind Sanji with Renkyaku, striking him. Sanji's attacks are blocked, but Robin restrains Blueno, promising she won't escape, and chooses to stay on Puffing Tom to protect the Straw Hats. Sanji asks why, and Blueno explains that years ago an island was destroyed, with Robin as the sole child survivor. Sanji tries to attack, but Blueno vanishes through his air door. The train soon departs toward Ines Lobby. Yokozuna derails Rocketman, angering Luffy and separating the Frankie family's car. Kokoro talks to the frog, who joins them to rescue Frankie. Quickly, the Frankie family boards the cars alongside Sanji and Sogeking. Sanji tells the others how Frankie risked himself to save Robin, leaving them moved. Luffy and the Rocketman crew quickly catch up, and Luffy notices Sanji and wonders about the mysterious Sogeking. Polly reveals that the Gates of Justice are located at the far back, and the only way to get to them is to go through the Tower of Justice. Luffy wonders what is the big hole, and Polly says it's the waterfall. Polly says that if they don't rescue Robin and Frankie before they pass through the Gates of Justice, then it's all over. The sky clears and Ines Lobby appears. Luffy quickly has gone missing, and the Rubberman has already launched himself into Ines Lobby. The Marines and government agents spot him. The Frankie family charge in riding on Sodom and Gomorrah and blast away at some Marines. Spandam receives a report with the Marines saying there are a bunch of people charging through the main gate, and they need reinforcements. Luffy asks Marines to let him pass, but one attacks. He dodges and uses Gomu Gomu no Makata Robo to control the Marine, taking out others. Luffy escapes over the second gate, leaving the Marines behind. Spandam demands to know what is going on from the gatekeeper. However, the gatekeeper has been knocked out. As the members of the Frankie family proceed, they are ambushed by the two giants Kashi and Oimo. With Mozu and Kiwi's ship's bottom dismantling cut, Polly's rope action, and Zanbai's bazooka, Kashi is finally defeated. He is then nailed down by Peeply Lulu and Tilestone. Oimo then takes on the remaining fighters, while Luffy takes out 500 soldiers on his own. Meanwhile, the members of CP9 meet together in the first full reunion in 5 years. After CP9 finishes fighting, Spandam praises them for capturing Robin and Cutty Flam, promising a reward later. Meanwhile, Robin recalls her happy moments with the Straw Hats. On the streets, Luffy defeats more Marines, tearing a wall and using Gatling gun to send rubble flying everywhere. Baskerville sends 100 men from the Watchdog unit to the area. At the gate, Oimo is distracted by the Frankie family while Mozu and Kiwi manage to unlock the gate. Meanwhile, the Rocketman finally reaches Ines Lobby. Yokozuna pushes on the gate, allowing the Rocketman to ride over the fence. The train is sent flying into the air. Meanwhile, the Frankie family finally defeats Oimo. The Straw Hats try to catch up with Luffy. Zoro notices they're being followed as Marines surround them, but Sodom, Gomorrah, Galila, and the Frankie family help the Straw Hats escape and fight the Marines. Meanwhile, Spandam reveals Aokiji allowed the Buster call, punching Robin when she questions it. Spandam asks what the CP9 wants, and Lucci explained they want blood. And they have the right to kill people because they are with the government. Sodom and Gomorrah come and rampage over the Marines. Luffy gets cornered by the Marines, so to escape he goes on the roof. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats now notice that Sogeking is not with them. Oimo wakes crying and Sogeking asks why. Oimo explains that he and Kashi's bosses left a little garden for a competition and never returned. After 50 years, they tried to rescue them but were tricked by the world government into serving at Ines Lobby for 100 years. Sogeking reveals that Dory and Brogy have been fighting ever since. Meanwhile, Sodom and Gomorrah charge the Marines, but Sodom is hit and collapses, while the Straw Hats ride Gomorrah to continue forward. The tables turn when the Giants reveal their purpose and Sogeking appears on Kashi's shoulders. The Giants easily knock out several Marines. Meanwhile, Frankie tells Robin how lucky she is to have friends like the Straw Hats who put so much effort for her rescue and followed her to as dangerous a place as Eni's lobby. At the same time, Spandam offers Kaku and Khalifa devil fruits with unknown powers. Both Kaku and Khalifa decide to eat them. Lucci appears very satisfied that they ate the devil fruits and urges them to understand their new powers. On the roof, Luffy faces Blueno and declares that he cannot finish the fight in his current state. Luffy, using Gear 2 for the first time, enhance his body and overpower Blueno and defeat him. Luffy, exhausted from the fight, struggles with Gear 2 but knows he must keep moving forward. Meanwhile, Frankie frees himself and Robin. The Straw Hats gather together and Luffy calls out to Robin, but she refuses to be saved. She just wanted to die. Quick flashback shows 20 years in the past. Robin grows up on Ohara, isolated and mistreated while her mother is away. Despite this, she becomes an archaeology scholar at only 8 years old and dreams of studying the Forbidden Void Century. After being rejected by the scholars, she befriends Saul, who teaches her how to smile. Olvia returns to the island and warns the scholars that the world government plans to destroy Ohara, but they refuse to abandon their research. To protect her daughter, Olvia cuts ties with Robin. The world government launches a buster call. Professor Clover is executed after revealing the truth about an erased ancient civilization. As the Tree of Knowledge burns, Robin reunites briefly with her mother, who sends her away with Saul to escape. Saul sacrifices himself to protect Robin. Vice Admiral Kuzan, Aokaji, secretly allows her to flee, while Akainu destroys the evacuation ship. From that day on, Robin lives as a fugitive, feared by the world for simply existing. The Straw Hats silently acknowledge her fear. Spandam mocks her, highlighting the world government's reach. Luffy tells Sogeking to shoot down the flag, declaring war on the world government. Robin screams to Luffy, "Take me to the sea with you." Judge Baskerville fires the mortar cannon to stop the drawbridge, while Spandam drags Robin. Trusting the Straw Hats, Frankie makes a final gamble. Hoping Tom would understand, he burns the Pluton blueprints with fresh fire, shocking Spandam and CP9 as years of planning are erased. With the plans gone, Pluton can now only be rebuilt through Robin's knowledge. As Spandam attacks and sends Frankie falling into the abyss, Kokoro tells the Straw Hats to prepare to jump. At first confused, they understand when Rocketman's whistle sounds. Luffy wraps his arms around the crew and leaps from the roof. Rocketman charges up the drawbridge and launches into the air. Luffy guides everyone onto the flying train, and it catches Frankie on its damaged front. Rocketman crashes into the front wall of the Tower of Justice. Spandam orders Lucci to escort him and Robin to the Gates of Justice, while the rest of CP9 are told to eliminate the Straw Hats. As the crew prepares to fight, Fukaru stops them and reveals each CP9 member holds a key to Robin's Seastone cuffs, but only one key works. Sanji quickly forms a plan. Luffy goes after Robin, while the rest stay behind to fight CP9. Sogeking sneaks past sleeping Jabra to steal a key, but wakes him. Jabra transforms into a wolfman, using the Inu Inu no Mi. Suddenly, but the ceiling collapses and Zoro falls into the room, along with a large giraffe. Kaku is accidentally transformed into a full giraffe instead of his hybrid form. Zoro and Sogeking get handcuffed together, forcing Kaku and Jabra to fight them both. Chopper finds them and is sent to get key number 2 from another CP9 member. In the dungeon, Kumadori traps Nami with his hair, preventing her from climbing. Frankie, low on cola and unable to use special attacks, is forced to box with Fukaru. Sanji and Khalifa test their strength, evenly matched. After drinking tea, Sanji demands her key, but she exploits his reluctance to hit women and kicks him across the room. Luffy reaches the bottom of the tower, seeing the whirlpool at the Gates of Justice. Nami is nearly killed by Kumadori, but rescued by Chopper, stealing Kumadori's key. Sanji suddenly falls, deformed into a doll-like figure, explaining his plight to Nami, who scolds him gently before confronting Khalifa. Luffy almost drowns crossing the ocean, but is rescued by Gonbei and Chimney, who lead him to a secret passage and a steel door. Using Gear 3, Luffy breaks it, shrinking briefly, then returns to normal to chase Lucci and Spandam. Lucci warns Spandam, who orders him to hold off pursuers while taking Robin to the gates. Meanwhile, Frankie and Fukaru fight in the kitchen. Frankie tires from lack of cola, but Chopper arrives, locking Kumadori in a fridge. After accidentally giving Frankie the wrong drinks, Chopper refills his cola fully, powering him up to punch Fukaru out of the building. The battle continues outside, into the ocean, and high above the tower. Frankie finishes Fukaru with his coup de vent cannon and takes the number 4 key. Zoro and Usopp, still handcuffed together, plan to use Usopp as Zoro's sword. Kumadori escapes the fridge and attacks Chopper, who eats another Rumble Ball. The transformations become erratic, leaving him vulnerable. Chopper, remembering his promise to Dr. Kure, takes a third Rumble Ball and grows into a giant monster, crushing Kumadori and throwing him from the tower. In Khalifa's room, Nami lies paralyzed as Khalifa bathes. Recovering, she uses Mirage Tempo to confuse Khalifa and Thunder Lance Tempo to defeat her, taking the key. Chopper, still giant, enters Zoro and Sogeking's fight. Luffy catches Lucci in the basement as Spandam escapes with Robin. Spandam accidentally summons the Buster Call, a fleet ordered to destroy the island. Marines evacuate after Robin warns them. Luffy fights Lucci to reach her, while Jabra and Kaku rush to finish Zoro and Usopp before the bombardment. Chopper reverts to normal after being knocked into the ocean by Frankie. Nami unlocks Zoro and Usopp's cuffs. Frankie guides them to try Fukuru and Kumadori's keys on Robin's restraints. Zoro battles Kaku, who uses his devil fruit to enhance attacks. Kaku changes into a larger form with longer arms and legs, gaining advantage. Zoro, angry and desperate, unleashes his nine-sword style, appearing as an Asura deity, and defeats Kaku with Ichibugen. Zoro receives Kaku's key in a joke-in victory. Sanji catches up, realizing the last key is theirs. Robin admits her fear of death but trusts her crew to save her. Luffy struggles against Lucci's rapid Shagan attacks. Frankie arrives wanting to help, but Luffy tells him to leave Lucci to him. He needs to go after Robin. Frankie attacks Lucci, but his Takai is too strong. Luffy uses Gear 2 and knocks Lucci away. Astonished by Luffy's strength, Frankie is encouraged to fight. Luffy holds off the transformed Lucci, letting Frankie leave to chase Spandam and Robin. On the bridge, Spandam drags Robin, gloating about landmines behind them. He reveals his father, Spandine, destroyed Ohara, enraging Robin. Frankie triggers the mines, falling into the water, while Spandam laughs that no one can save her. Suddenly, Sogeking fires missiles from the Tower of Justice, hitting Spandam and the Marines, and Robin escapes. Frankie jumps in to block the bullets, receives all the keys, and uses the number 5 key to unlock Robin's Seastone cuffs. Robin thanks him, and Frankie tells her she is free to act. She attacks Spandam with her devil fruit powers. The celebration is cut short as the Buster Call fleet arrives, destroying the tower top and the defensive fence. Frankie warns it's their last chance to escape via the escort ship. In the tunnels, Nami's group run from rising water. Luffy's Gear 2 strains his body, pushing him to the limit. Lucci realizes Luffy is using his legs to pump blood, something only his rubber body can handle. Risking his life, Luffy ignores the danger, furious at Lucci for mocking his friends, while Lucci floods the underwater passage to block the Straw Hats. Marines try to stop Robin but halt as the Buster Call approaches. The Buster Call fleet arrives with 5 Vice Admirals. They can destroy everything except the bridge where Robin stands. The Frankie family rushes toward the gates. Sogeking, blown from the tower, lands near Sanji and Zoro. Meanwhile, Nami's group are caught in rising water. Exhausted, Luffy is attacked by Lucci, then uses Gear 3 to grow his arm and strike Lucci with a Gomu Gomu no Gigant pistol, sending him flying into the sea. He then lands on a ship of the Buster Call, where the Marines are confused and amazed. Lucci, after recovering, returns to human form, showing scars from the world government. Luffy heads to the ship where Lucci is, dodging Marine gunfire. He uses Gomu Gomu no Gigant axe, smashing the ship and knocking out many Marines. Lucci evades, bites Luffy's shoulder, and attacks in his leopard form. Luffy counters with Gomu Gomu no Gigant whip, striking the ship's mass. Lucci jumps behind him, kicks him into the ship, and launches a Renkyaku, which Luffy dodges while slicing through the deck. Vice Admiral Onigamo orders the fleet to target Luffy's ship, killing a Marine who objects. The ship is hit, but Luffy survives and returns to the tower, shrinking briefly from Gear 3 side effects. Spandam mocks him, but Frankie punches him and blocks Funkfried. Zoro and others struggle in the flooding tunnels, but Kokoro saves them, revealing her mermaid form. Robin and Frankie hijack Spandam's escape ship, with Kokoro jumping aboard with the unconscious Straw Hats. Robin and Frankie thank her as she returns to human form. The rest of the Frankie family and crew escape the Buster Call path. Meanwhile, Nami and Robin, exhausted and surrounded by Marines, fight back together. Robin disables the enemies with her powers while Nami unleashes another Thunderbolt Tempo, wiping them out. Elsewhere, Frankie battles Captain Very Good, whose Berry Berry no Mi lets him split into many parts. Zoro steps in, deflecting the attacks, and Frankie finishes the fight with a powerful weapons left. Nami and Robin arrive, and Robin uses Clutch to take down the pursuing Marines. Zoro then faces a masked Marine who ate the Sabi Sabi no Mi, allowing him to rust anything he touches. Zoro's swords are destroyed and he is nearly immobilized, but the enemy is ultimately taken down, allowing the crew to keep moving forward. Usopp yells for Luffy to get up and taunts Lucci to distract him, while a bloodied, exhausted Luffy struggles to rise. Lucci ignores Usopp at first, but eventually confronts him. Luffy tells Usopp to stop, asking if he's crazy since Lucci could kill him, but Usopp tells Luffy to stop worrying. Seeing Usopp in danger, Luffy forces himself up, determined to fight until he defeats Lucci. Luffy and Lucci clash violently, exchanging relentless attacks. Remembering his promise, despite his injuries, he lands powerful jet pistol and jet gatling strikes. Even Lucci's Rokuogan and Tekkai cannot withstand Luffy's assault, and he is ultimately slammed through the wall. A Marine reports over the Denden Mushi that Lucci has been defeated. The Vice Admirals rally the Marines, resuming the fight on the Bridge of Hesitation. The Straw Hats and Franky hold their ground, but the Buster Call targets a fatigued Luffy. Usopp notices Luffy's plight. The Marines destroy the escape ship. The Straw Hats realize the Buster Call is cornering them strategically, isolating them on the second column while battleships take aim. Just then, Usopp hears that voice again, and the rest of the Straw Hats notice it too, urging them to look down. Realizing it's a friend, Usopp suggests a daring plan: jump into the sea. To their relief, the Going Merry waits below, ready to catch them. Many of the Straw Hats are choking back emotion at being back aboard their ship. Even Franky is wondering just how she got here after being dumped from his hideout by CP9. Spandam orders Marines to fire, but currents and whirlpools, aided by Nami, block them. Robin uses her powers to break Spandam's spine. Franky uses coup de vent to save everyone. Aokiji declares Enies Lobby a total defeat for the world government. The Straw Hats reunite and sail from the chaos. Later, they see Iceberg's ship with his shipwrights, but the Going Merry splits in two. Luffy pleads with Iceberg, who repairs it, but Iceberg tells him there's nothing he can do. Iceberg explains that he heard the Going Merry calling out, wanting to sail one last time, so he repaired her enough to ride the Aqua Laguna to Enies Lobby. He calls Merry a magnificent ship that went beyond her limits, but admits she can't return to Water 7. Luffy accepts this and gives Merry a Viking funeral, thanking her for carrying them all this way, as the crew watches in silence and says goodbye. 2 days after Aqua Laguna and Enies Lobby, Water 7 begins rebuilding. Polly and the Gallilaw shipwrights help restore the city as crowds gather at Dock 1 to thank the Straw Hats. Franky tells Iceberg he burned the Pluton blueprints, and Iceberg reveals his plan to save Water 7 by turning it into a floating city. The Straw Hats rest at Iceberg's headquarters while Luffy eats constantly. Kokoro says the log pose will reset in 3 days. Nami worries about losing their ship and belongings, but the hotel managers return everything. Franky reveals he used the stolen bully to buy Adam Wood and announces he will build the crew a new dream ship. A Marine ship arrives, led by Vice Admiral Garp. Zoro tries to warn the others, but gets lost. Garp bursts in and punches the sleeping Luffy, shocking everyone when Luffy calls him his grandfather. Garp is disappointed Luffy did not become a Marine and reveals that Shanks is one of the 4 emperors, powerful pirates who balance the world. Soon, Luffy and Zoro easily defeat Garp's students, revealed to be Kobe and Helmeppo. Kobe explains they trained under Garp to become officers. Garp then reveals that Luffy's father is Monkey D. Dragon, the man who saved him in Logtown. Everyone is stunned, though Luffy remains confused. Robin explains Dragon leads the Revolutionary Army and is known as the world's most dangerous criminal. Garp says he will not arrest his grandson, and only came to check on him and introduce Kobe and Helmeppo. Luffy learns the Marines can cross the Calm Belt with seastone-coated ships made by Dr. Vegapunk, and Nami overhears that Dr. Vegapunk can even place devil fruits into objects. Before leaving, Kobe tells Luffy about the New World, where the next Pirate King will rise, and they promise to meet again as rivals. On Garp's ship, Kobe suspects the truth about Enies Lobby is being hidden, but Garp ends the discussion. Later, the crew enjoys a barbecue. Aokiji appears to Robin, reveals he was Saul's friend, and says he protected her for 20 years. When Robin says she has found a place to belong, Aokiji leaves an icy X and departs. Called back to the party by Luffy, Robin realizes Saul's wish has come true. She is no longer alone. Shanks boards Whitebeard's ship. Shanks is Supreme King. Haki makes the crew faint as he passes, he apologizes, and Whitebeard sends everyone away. After drinking, Whitebeard comments on Shanks' growth since Roger's death and asks about Buggy. Shanks hasn't heard from him since Logtown. Whitebeard notices Shanks is missing an arm. Shanks says he lost it betting on the new era. Shanks shows a scar from Whitebeard's crew member Marshall D. Teach and asks Whitebeard to stop Ace from hunting him. Whitebeard, angry, says Blackbeard must be punished and throws his bottle. They clash swords, splitting the sky. Iceberg laughs, telling Frankie he never realized his true talent, and that the battle Frankies were just warm-ups for this masterpiece. Kokoro recalls Tom predicting they would become great shipwrights and now sees it coming true. Frankie notes the irony. Tom was punished for building a ship for Gol D. Roger, and now Iceberg is building one for a future infamous pirate crew. Meanwhile, Usopp worries about how to apologize to the crew. At dawn, Nami wakes to good news. A week has passed and the log pose is set. Kokoro explains it points to Fishman Island, deep under the sea, warning that the route crosses the dangerous Florian Triangle. Soon after, Zombai and the Frankie family bring worse news. New wanted posters are out. Luffy's bounty rises to 300 million, Zoro's to 120 million, Nami 16 million, Chopper 50, Robin 80 million, Sanji 77 million with a bad drawing, Sogeking 30 million, and Frankie 44 million. The Frankie family pleads with Luffy to take Frankie along now that he's wanted. Luffy calmly agrees, wanting a shipwright, though Zombai knows convincing Frankie won't be easy. The Straw Hats arrive at Dock 1 to see their new ship covered. Iceberg explains Frankie left a message. The future Pirate King should sail a ship marked by the King of Beasts. The ship is revealed, a large brig sloop with a lion figurehead, bigger than the Going Merry. Iceberg says Frankie wants to go with them but feels responsible for Water 7 and the Frankie family, so they will have to force him to join. At the Frankie house, the Frankie family confronts him. He refuses to leave. When shown his wanted poster, he thinks they are pushing him away. Someone steals his swim briefs, starting a chaotic chase through the city. When they arrive at the ship, Robin uses Dos Fleur grab on Frankie, causing extreme pain. Iceberg reminds him of his dream to build the ultimate ship and sail it, telling him to forgive himself for Tom's death. Frankie begins to cry. The Frankie family throws him a bag with his things. Zombai apologizes, saying they only want him happy. Suddenly, Zoro and Sanji rush past, warning that Vice Admiral Garp is coming. Frankie regains confidence, says a great ship needs a real shipwright, and joins the crew, striking one last pose to Water 7 before jumping aboard. Garp and his Marines dislike Sengoku's order to wipe out the Straw Hats at Water 7, but with Admiral Aokuji present, they must obey. As the Frankie family says goodbye to Frankie, the Straw Hats sail away on their new ship. Some notice Usopp is missing, but Luffy already knows. In a flashback, Sanji tells Luffy that Usopp plans to rejoin. Luffy wants to accept him, but Zoro insists Usopp must first apologize for leaving the crew and challenging Luffy over the Going Merry. Otherwise, it would undermine Luffy's authority as captain. Luffy understands and agrees. Back in the present, Luffy pretends Usopp will not return, though he believes they will meet again. Meanwhile, Usopp runs through Water 7, certain the crew will welcome him back. As Nami asks Luffy to wait, Garp catches up. Usopp reaches the shore and sees the ship leaving. Crying, he apologizes for being selfish and stubborn and begs to return. Luffy finally hears him, stops the ship, and stretches his arm. Usopp grabs on, and Luffy pulls him aboard as both cry. The crew celebrates while escaping Garp. Frankie prepares a secret escape system and suggests a name fitting the lion figurehead. Iceberg names the ship the Thousand Sunny, a vessel meant to cross 1,000 seas. Luffy thanks to everyone, though they cannot hear him. Garp attacks with a giant cannonball, but Frankie activates Coup de Burst, using Cola to launch the Thousand Sunny into the air and escape. Across the world, new bounties spread. At Baltigo, Dragon reviews the Straw Hats' wanted posters and believes his son's actions will shake the world government, looking forward to meeting him someday. As the world reacts to the Straw Hats' new bounties and Eni's lobby, Blackbeard predicts their bounties will rise and decides to move before the Marines. In a ruined town, Ace confronts Blackbeard. Blackbeard invites Ace to join his crew, reveals his plan to become Pirate King, and says he will kill Luffy and hand him to the world government. Ace refuses, vowing to protect his brother. The fight begins. Ace easily counters Blackbeard's crew with his Logia powers. Blackbeard admits he killed Thatch to obtain the Yami Yami no Mi, a devil fruit he sought for decades. He demonstrates its power, absorbing and destroying the town with darkness, then releasing it back. Ace attacks again, but Blackbeard explains his darkness absorbs everything, including pain, and allows him to cancel devil fruit powers by touch. He pulls Ace in and strikes him, proving his gravity-like power is extremely dangerous. The Water 7 saga ends with Blackbeard offering Ace a final chance to join him, but Ace refuses, choosing pride and loyalty to Whitebeard. Ace unleashes Flame Emperor, declaring he will make Whitebeard the Pirate King. Darkness and fire collide, and the scene ends with Ace's hat lying on the ground. The story continues as Zoro spots a treasure barrel at sea. They bring it aboard. Nami guesses it's an offering to the sea god, but when opened, a red flare explodes. Robin suspects it's a trap, and Nami senses a storm. Frankie saves the ship with soldier dock system, and Luffy realizes they've entered the Florian Triangle. A black ghost ship appears with a skeleton in a suit and afro, calmly drinking tea. Luffy, Nami, and Sanji go aboard. The skeleton flirts with Nami, Sanji gets angry, and Luffy invites him to join. He introduces himself as Brook. On the Sunny, Brook explains he ate the Yomi Yomi no Mi. He died, and years later his soul returned to his body, but only his bones remained. His crew was killed by a stronger pirate crew in the Sea of Devils. Zoro asks about his hair. Brook says it has strong roots. Usopp and Chopper notice he has no shadow and call him a vampire. Brook explains that losing his shadow is different. Sunlight would turn him to dust. Suddenly, Brook sees a ghost and the ship shakes. A huge gate blocks their path. Brook explains the floating barrel was a trap and their ship was targeted. He warns them the island is Thriller Bark, a ghost island from West Blue. Brook jumps off the ship and runs on water. The gate traps the Sunny. Nami wants to flee, but Luffy wants to explore. Frankie says they cannot drop anchor, then reveals Mini Mary, and Nami, Usopp, and Chopper test the Mini Mary. Suddenly, Nami screams from the fog. The anchor drops by itself, a trapdoor opens. Unseen forces attack. Luffy is stretched, Zoro's sword flies at him, and Frankie saves him. Sanji and Robin are hit by something invisible. Waves rise, and Frankie suggests escaping with the flying pool. Meanwhile, Nami's group falls into a ditch of bones. A Cerberus appears. They run and find a staircase leading to the island. Usopp uses a smoke star to hide. Cerberus cannot find them and moves deeper into the forest. A voice introduces Hilden, a vampire-like man hanging upside down. He followed them to protect them and warns the forest is dangerous at night. He offers to take them to Dr. Hogback's mansion. They accept and ride through the forest. In the carriage, Hilden explains the forest creatures are deadly at night, and the mansion is safest. Chopper talks excitedly about Hogback, a famous doctor who disappeared. Nami sees a lion with a human face. Usopp doubts it, but the creatures vanish after a blink. They want to turn back, but Hilden says it could be fog illusions. Soon zombies rise in a graveyard. One grabs Usopp, flips the carriage, and forces Nami and Chopper out. Nami sees Usopp being bitten. Chopper attacks in heavy point, but the zombie reattaches its head. Usopp uses a fire star to escape, and the zombies suddenly start running faster, shocking them. Back on the Sunny, currents push the ship into a giant spiderweb, trapping it. Nami's group reach the mansion gate and enter. Sindri throws plates at Usopp, refusing entry. Dr. Hogback appears, welcomes them, and explains Sindri's bitterness. Sindri locks the door behind them. In the dining room, Hogback questions their arrival. Chopper wants to see him, while Nami and Usopp explain the zombie attack. Hogback examines the zombies but admits he knows little. Chopper asks for an autograph and then requests to see the lab, but Hogback refuses. Sindri serves dessert and announces the bath is ready. Usopp nervously asks if Hogback has seen a skeleton. He denies it. Nami goes to bathe while Usopp and Chopper keep watch. Chopper still wants to see the lab, and Nami senses something strange, suspecting Hogback is lying. In the bath, invisible hands pin her to the wall as a growling voice claims she will be his bride. Usopp and Chopper rush in. Nami kicks the invisible attacker and escapes. Chopper tracks him by scent, and Usopp attacks, but the intruder flees. Nami realizes the invisible man knows their plan. On the Sunny, Zoro suspects the island is a trap, but Luffy insists on exploring to find Nami, Usopp, and Chopper. In the forest, they encounter Cerberus. Luffy tries to tame it, gets bitten, but punches its heads and succeeds. They continue searching. They then meet a talking tree and a unicorn. Luffy and Frankie chase them, and Luffy invites them to join the crew. Zoro and Sanji object. Outside the mansion, Hogback talks with Absalom, who wants Nami as his bride. Hogback refuses because of her bounty and orders him to capture Luffy for his bounty. Inside, Usopp argues the zombies and strange events aren't real. Chopper suspects medical explanations, but trusts Hogback may have found miracles. They go to the dining room. It is dark and empty. Hilden appears, hanging upside down. He says Hogback and Sindri went to bed. Usopp is angry at being left in the graveyard. Hilden apologizes, but Nami and Usopp do not trust him. Chopper still wants to talk to Hogback. A woman emerges from a portrait and grabs Chopper. Zombies attack. A stitched zombie claims to be captain. A skin rug zombie throws Usopp onto a chandelier. Usopp uses candles to burn zombies, but the door is locked. Zombies recover and chase them. They enter Sindri's room. Nami reads about Sindri's past as an actress who died on stage. She finds a treasure chest. A jack-in-the-box zombie jumps out, and they run. Ryuma appears, tells the zombies not to fear. Meanwhile, Luffy's group rides Cerberus. Sanji complains they already have strange crew members. Robin notices all creatures are bandaged, stitched, or numbered. They encounter zombies in a graveyard. Luffy asks about Nami, Usopp, and Chopper. The zombies refuse at first, but after being beaten, they admit they didn't harm them. The crew then heads to Hogback's mansion. An old zombie warns them about Gecko Moria. Robin recognizes him as a warlord with a higher bounty than Luffy. He warns their shadows will be stolen and sunlight will destroy them. Luffy accepts the challenge. More shadowless zombies appear. Meanwhile, Ryuma kicks Nami, Usopp, and Chopper into Hogback's lab, shocking him. They apologize, but Hogback warns a midnight raid will start. Zombies report to Moria. 3 zombies report the Straw Hats' progress. Luffy's group sees rain and a pirate sail. An old zombie explains Thriller Bark is a giant pirate ship. Moria's home is the backmast. Absalom orders the hunt at midnight. Perona prepares for battle, and Moria declares Thriller Bark will bring nightmares. Luffy moves deeper into the mansion. In Hogback's lab, Nami learns how he creates zombies, and about Sindri's death 10 years ago. Hogback orders Sindri and Ryuma to attack. Ryuma, showing Brook's personality, flirts with Nami and tries to peek at her panties, but fails. He knocks them down with Soul Solid. Luffy's group finds a room of portraits. The portrait zombies attack, and they defeat them easily. Buachuk lies about their crew's presence, but Frankie notices Sanji is missing. Robin takes a pig zombie as a guide while portraits mock them and warn Moria will destroy them. Luffy vows to destroy Thriller Bark if his crew is hurt. Nami's group are locked in a coffin to be thrown away. Absalom declares he will teach the Straw Hats fear. Lola, the warthog zombie, wants to marry him, but when he chooses Nami, she targets Nami. Nami's group escape into a garden of animal zombies, including Inupa, a penguin dog zombie acting like Sanji. Elsewhere, the Luffy's team enters an armor hall and realizes Zoro is missing. A gold knight approaches, revealed to be Luffy in disguise. Buachuk guides them to a tent room. A general zombie knight attacks Frankie. Frankie fails to stop him. The knight fires a crossblade. Frankie shoots back. More generals appear. The wall closes behind them, trapping the crew. Inupi protects Nami. Perona steals food and money, and Zoro and Sanji are captured in Moria's room. Meanwhile, Frankie punches zombies. Robin binds them. Luffy smashes others, but they keep rising. Shiguro, a scarred swordsman zombie, strikes with 36 caliber Phoenix. Luffy mistakes him for Zoro. Frankie and Robin flee along a walkway. Frankie blasts fire, but zombies douse themselves, while Robin slows them with her powers. Luffy is trapped in a coffin, and a spider monkey zombie blocks Frankie and Robin. At the same time, Inupa fights the animal zombies, gives a speech about love, then turns on Usopp and Chopper. Lola suddenly appears and Absalom tries to stop her, but she attempts to kiss him. He rejects her, she blames Nami, and breaks Inupe's axe with one punch. Absalom kidnaps Nami while invisible, but Usopp and Chopper recognize him from the bath. Nami shocks Absalom with lightning, escapes, and runs as Lola chases him. The animal zombies panic over Perona's punishment, and Absalom attacks Inupe. Nami uses Usopp and Chopper as shields. Lola charges, Nami blocks with her staff, and Chopper jumps at Lola, who keeps fighting relentlessly. Frankie and Robin are cornered by Tararan, who reveals he trapped the Sunny in his webs. The bridge collapses, dropping zombies. Robin saves Frankie, who crashes near where Luffy was taken. Tararan stands while Brook falls from the sky. Meanwhile, Nami tricks Lola into chasing Absalom, calling it friendship. Lola pursues him, and Nami discovers treasure near Perona's room, heading straight there. Small zombies carry Luffy to Moria. Perona complains the Sunny has little treasure, and Hilden calls a meeting to create Zombie 900. Moria plans to use Luffy to become Pirate King. Absalom hunts Nami, Usopp, and Chopper, who hide inside Kamashi. Meanwhile, Tararan traps Frankie and Robin with webs. Frankie plans a spider smasher. Robin blinds Tararan. Frankie smashes him, but he traps them again. Brook attacks with Soul Solid. Tararan collapses, shocking the spider zombies. Brook explains to Frankie that fire can break the webs. Frankie frees them. Brook worries about the captured Straw Hats and finally shares his past. After his death, Brook drifted for years on a broken ship before reaching Thriller Bark 5 years ago. There, Moria captured him and stole his shadow, placing it into a corpse to create a zombie. Brook explains that shadows are copies of a person's soul, and Moria uses his shadow powers to control them, often combining them with corpses made by Hogback. In present, Brook tells Frankie and Robin to return to the Sunny, warns them about shadows, and gives them salt to purify zombies. Brook plans to face Ryuma to reclaim his shadow. At the same time, Luffy, trapped in a web cage, declares he will become Pirate King, and demands his crew and shadows back. Hogback mocks him. Perona doubts him. Just then, Luffy bites free, dodges Perona's negative ghost by curling up, but is captured again and hung from the ceiling. Moria cuts out Luffy's shadow with giant scissors, knocking him unconscious. and announces he will revive Oars with it. In the freezer, Moria uses Luffy's shadow to revive Oars. Oars comes alive, calls for meat in Luffy's voice, and blows Nami's group away. Chopper realizes Hogback creates zombies with shadows. Usopp says they must save their friends' bodies. Absalom sets Usopp and Chopper on fire, kidnaps Nami, and escapes. Frankie and Robin save Usopp and Chopper, who cry with relief. Zombies bring food to Oars, who devours everything. Moria praises him and explains Oars' rebirth to serve him, but Oars rejects it, craving the sea and adventure. He smashes out of the freezer with a Gomu Gomu no pistol, and declares he will become Pirate King. Brook meets Ryuma, vowing to fight for his shadow. Ryuma mocks Brook, expecting him to beg like before. Brook faces Ryuma again, ready to fight. Absalom takes Nami to a room with an old zombie and 2 painting zombies. They praise her and prepare the wedding dress. On the Sunny, the crew finds the ship trashed and Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji unconscious. Usopp wakes them up. They share informations. Frankie explains Brook survived because of his promise to Laboon. Zoro realizes Brook was Laboon's old friend. Meanwhile, Brook fights Ryuma, who cuts his afro. Brook thinks of Laboon and vows to meet him again. On the Sunny, Frankie cries as Luffy insists on making Brook the crew's musician. Sanji, furious, vows to stop Nami's wedding and drags Usopp along. Frankie and Zoro rush to aid Brook, while Robin heads to save Nami. Usopp arms them all with salt balls and they race to recover the shadows before sunrise. Oars plays with the ship's mast, climbing by hand. Hogback praises him. Moria laughs. Zombies panic as Luffy fights through them. Oars smashes the castle, sending Sanji and Usopp falling. Zoro and Frankie can't stop him, while Luffy pushes on toward Moria. Chopper confronts Hogback in the freezer. Robin stops Sindri from throwing plates. Inupe and Jigoro attack Chopper. Frankie rebuilds broken stairs, and Zoro's group observes Oars misusing Luffy's power. At Perona's room, her ghost overwhelmed the crew, but Usopp fires salt stars, purifying wild zombies. Already negative, he resists Perona's ghost, who faints. Usopp frees his friends and handles Perona alone. Brook fights Ryuma, who breaks his guard. Brook thinks of Laboon, stands, and attacks. The mansion shakes. Zoro and Frankie arrive to help, surprising Brook. Ryuma is angry. Zoro challenges him. Meanwhile, Luffy declares he will defeat Moria and recover shadows. Just before Absalom can kiss Nami, Oars shakes the area. Absalom orders his men to stop him, but the giant overpowers them. Fearing Oars will sink the island, Sanji arrives and rescues Nami. Luffy attacks with Gomu Gomu no pistol, but hits Moria's shadow. Moria boasts he and Oars share the dream of becoming Pirate King, and explains how zombies first mimic personalities, then obey him. Luffy uses Gomu Gomu no Gatling, but the shadow transforms into bats, forcing him to dodge and prepare another strike. Usopp dodges zombies and Perona, distract them, and purifies zombies with salt. His Firebird star fails, but a chandelier fire scares the zombies. Kumashi blocks him, letting Perona escape, and chases Usopp. Sanji fights Absalom with fiery kicks, protects Nami, and smashes Absalom into a wall. Usopp keeps chasing Perona. Kumashi attacks again, but Usopp becomes Soga King and shoots salt into Kumashi's mouth, purifying him. He finds Perona's hidden real body, misses his first shot, blocks her explosion with an impact dial, traps her, scares her into defeat, and leaves her until dawn. Meanwhile, Zoro battles Ryuma at full strength across the collapsing lab and roof. Frankie clears escape paths for Brook as the duel shakes the building. They clash fiercely. Ryuma tries to break Zoro's swords, and Zoro counters. Ryuma sets Zoro ablaze, but ultimately yields, granting him Shusui. Brook's shadow returns, letting him walk in daylight, and the two move on. Luffy grows tired as Moria mocks him. Moria's shadow attacks. Meanwhile, Hogback explains zombies lose shadow personality over time. Chopper realizes Hogback is cruel, obsessed with control and money. Sindri is forced to lick the floor. Chopper stops her. She attacks him with plates but hesitates after he talks about freedom. Jigoro intervenes. Robin restrains Hogback, forcing him to order Jigoro and Inupe off the tower. Hogback panics. Chopper attacks Hogback and Sindri cries. Oars reaches Moria and Luffy. Hogback orders Sindri to stall. Robin restrains her and Chopper catches Hogback. Oars crushes him, then interrupts Sanji's fight as Absalom grabs Nami. The crew attacks Oars but is defeated. Luffy chases Moria, blocked by shadow attacks. Perona wakes from a nightmare. Mansion collapses. Seeing Oars, she plans to steal the Sunny. Absalom's wedding continues. Nami wakes up and resists. Lola helps Nami escape. Nami defeats Absalom with a thunder attack. Lola calls Nami a friend. Luffy chases Moria but finds only his shadow. Nami reaches the Sunny and meets Perona, who plans to escape with the treasure. Suddenly, Kuma appears. Perona tries to leave Moria's crew, attacks Kuma, and disappears when he touches her. Kuma speaks to Nami about Luffy's brother Ace and leaves. Nami realizes she must warn the others. Moria meets Kuma and talks about Blackbeard replacing Crocodile. The Straw Hats attack Oars. Usopp runs for salt, and Oars targets him, but Brook saves him with a huge bag of salt. Sanji says they must purify Oars before sunrise. The crew strikes together. Oars retaliates. Nami uses Thunderbolt tempo, forcing him to his knees, but Oars hits her with Gomu Gomu attacks. Robin saves her. Luffy chases Moria through the forest, but realizes he is only chasing Moria's shadow. The rolling pirates help Luffy, giving him shadows that cause pain but increase his power. Luffy gains swords and shadow strength for 10 minutes, becoming Nightmare Luffy. Oars attacks with Gomu Gomu moves. Moria explains he gave Oars stretchy powers via Shadow's Revolution, turning him into a rolling ball. The crew fights together. Nami summons storm clouds. Usopp launches Brook. Brook strikes Oars with lightning. Oars blocks attacks. Robin binds Moria, but bats bite her. Moria switches with his double and steals her shadow, leaving her unconscious. Sanji attacks Oars but is fooled by a decoy. Oars strikes back. Chopper and Sanji hit his arm but are defeated. Only Nami, Zoro, and Usopp remain. Zoro wounds Oars but is kicked into a wall. Usopp throws salt but Moria's double blocks it. Oars crushes Usopp and Nami. Moria orders him to finish them. Nightmare Luffy appears, saving Usopp and Nami. He knocks down Oars, throws him around, slashes him, and punches Moria. The rolling pirates help evacuate the injured Straw Hats. Luffy collapses as the shadows leave him, but Oars and Moria stand again. The Straw Hats prepare for the final strike, and Luffy, exhausted, remains determined. The crew executes their plan. Nami weakens Oars with rain, Frankie freezes his legs, Sanji chains him, Zoro slices him, and Brook throws Luffy onto him. Luffy uses Gomu Gomu giant bazooka, breaking Oars' spine. Oars falls, finally defeated. Dawn approaches and the zombies panic. Moria uses Shadow's Asgard to absorb about 1,000 shadows, becoming monstrous. Sunlight burns the shadowless pirates. Luffy activates Gear 2 and Gear 3, attacking Moria and forcing the shadows out. The main tower collapses and the shadows return to their owners. The Straw Hats survive, exhausted, with Luffy unconscious. Hogback escapes with Absalom. Suddenly Kuma appears and got the order to eliminate the Straw Hats. He blasts paw-shaped shockwaves and confronts Zoro, while the rolling pirates and the Straw Hats brace for battle. The crew's attacks are ineffective. They realize they cannot match Kuma in their weakened state. Unfazed by fighting injured enemies, Kuma compresses a massive amount of air into a glowing paw-shaped sphere, warning Nami and Robin that it will explode. He offers to spare everyone if they surrender Luffy, but the Straw Hats and rolling pirates refuse. Kuma unleashes Ursus Shock, causing catastrophic destruction and knocking everyone unconscious. As Kuma moves to seize Luffy, Zoro launches a desperate attack, damaging him and revealing his mechanical pacifista body. Zoro boldly offers his life to protect Luffy. Sanji tries to intervene but is knocked out. Kuma consents. Zoro must take all of Luffy's pain. Enduring unimaginable agony, Zoro survives, having sacrificed himself for his captain. The Straw Hats and rolling pirates wake up. Frankie notices Luffy is unharmed. Sanji finds Zoro covered in blood and asks what happened, but Zoro says nothing. The crew starts celebrating. Luffy tries to give Zoro some rum, but Chopper stops him. Brook plays the piano and everyone joins in the party. Luffy asks Brook to join the crew, but Brook declines, promising to return to Laboon. Luffy reassures him that Laboon is fine, and Brook bursts into happy tears, recalling when he first met the whale. Quick flashback shows Brook's past. Laboon followed the Rumbar pirates, befriended them, and they had to leave him behind when entering the Grand Line. They promised to return once he grew strong enough. Later, his ship drifted in the Florian Triangle, and after dying, he revived with the Yomi Yomi no Mi, becoming a skeleton. In present, Brook plays for the Straw Hats and the victims, taking out a tone dial from his skull. He explains it carries a song for Laboon from the Rumbar pirates, showing they were happy until the end. Flashbacks show the crew recording the song as they died, one by one, smiling while Brook survived alone, remembering his promise to Laboon. In the present, Brook plays the song, everyone sings. Luffy asks again if he wants to join the crew, and this time, Brook accepts. Brook introduces himself as a wanted pirate with a bounty of 33 million berries. 2 days later, Usopp and Frankie make graves for the Rumbar pirates. The Straw Hats prepare to leave. Frankie gives Brook's repaired ship to the victims. Lola gives Nami a Vivre card pointing to her mother in the New World. Luffy checks Ace's Vivre card, which was burning and shrinking, a sign that Ace's life was in danger. The Thriller Bark Saga ends as they sail away. Three enormous, mysterious figures appear in the fog over Thriller Bark. Nami worries about Ace, but Luffy decides to continue, trusting Ace can handle himself and hoping to meet him in the new world as a rival. If you want more recaps like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know what anime you want to see next.